Get your hands off my son right now. Marcus Wellington's briefcase hit the marble floor with a crack that echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. His 7-year-old son Oliver sat on the stairs, his small face destroyed by purple bruises and fresh cuts near his swollen temple. And there she was, Grace Johnson, the maid he had hired exactly 21 days ago. Both of her dark hands were cupped around Oliver's battered face, her fingers moving in strange, deliberate patterns across his damaged skin. The boy was not screaming. He was not pulling away. He was not crying for help. He was staring at this woman with an intensity that made Marcus's blood turn to ice, like she was the only person in the entire world who mattered, like his own father did not exist. Marcus's heart slammed against his ribs so hard he thought it might shatter. What kind of monster had he allowed into his home? What had she done to his son? Before we continue, I need you to subscribe to this channel and follow this story all the way to the end. Drop a comment below and tell me what city you are watching from. I want to see how far across the world this story can travel, because what happens next will shatter everything you think you know about judgment, about forgiveness, about the people God places in our lives at the exact moment we need them most, even when we are too blind, too angry, and too broken to see it. Marcus Wellington had not walked through his own front door before 10 o'clock at night in exactly 3 years, 2 months and 14 days. He knew the number because he had counted every single one of them. Every night he stayed late at the office. Every dinner he missed. Every bedtime story he never read. He counted them like a prisoner counts the days until release, except Marcus was not trying to escape. He was trying to hide. The cancer had taken Elizabeth in 17 months. 17 months of watching the woman he loved disappear piece by piece. 17 months of holding her hand while she promised him everything would be okay, even when they both knew she was lying. 17 months of Oliver asking why Mommy was so tired, why Mommy could not play anymore, why Mommy's hair was gone. And then she was gone too. After the funeral, Marcus had done what he knew how to do. He worked. He buried himself so deep in spreadsheets and conference calls and billion-dollar deals that he could almost forget the empty side of the bed. He could almost forget the sound of her laugh. He could almost forget that somewhere in this $45 million penthouse, his 7-year-old son was growing up without him. Almost. But today, his meeting in Chicago had been canceled. His private jet had landed at JFK at 2 in the afternoon, and for the first time in 3 years, Marcus Wellington had come home while the sun was still in the sky. He did not call ahead. He never called ahead anymore. Calling ahead meant someone would be waiting for him, and Marcus had spent 3 years making absolutely certain that no one waited for him ever again. The elevator opened to silence. The expensive kind of silence that $45 million could buy, but could never fill. Marcus stepped into the foyer, loosening his tie, already thinking about the whiskey in his study, about the work emails he could answer, about all the ways he could fill the hours until it was late enough to justify going to sleep. Then he heard it. Oliver's voice. Soft, focused, intense in a way Marcus had never heard from his son before. And another voice, a woman's voice, low and patient and gentle. Grace. Marcus moved down the hallway without making a sound. 20 years of negotiating billion-dollar deals had taught him patience. Had taught him to observe before attacking, had taught him that the person who speaks first usually loses. He reached the doorway to the living room and looked inside. What he saw made his heart stop beating. Oliver sat on the Italian leather sofa that Elizabeth had picked out 3 months before she got sick. His small face was destroyed. Purple and yellow bruises spread across his left cheek like a map of violence. A cut near his eyebrow had scabbed over, but still looked angry and red and painful. His lip was swollen. His eye was half closed. Marcus's son looked like he had been beaten. And Grace Johnson, the woman Marcus had hired exactly 21 days ago to clean his home and watch his child, had both of her hands on Oliver's damaged face. Her dark fingers moved in strange patterns, deliberate, purposeful, almost ritualistic like some kind of ceremony Marcus did not understand. But it was not the movements that made Marcus's blood turn to fire. It was Oliver's face. His son was not crying. His son was not fighting. His son was not screaming for help, or trying to pull away, or showing any sign of distress at all. Oliver was staring at Grace Johnson with complete and total focus, like she held the secrets of the universe in her hands, like she was the only person in the entire world who mattered, like Marcus did not exist at all. Something inside Marcus snapped. "What the hell are you doing?" His voice exploded through the room like a bomb. Grace's hands dropped from Oliver's face. The boy flinched so hard he nearly fell off the sofa, his small body curving inward like a question mark, like he was trying to disappear into the cushions. "Mr. Wellington." Grace stood slowly, her hands rising in front of her palms open. "I can explain everything if you will just let me get away from him." Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides. He grabbed Oliver by the shoulders and pulled the boy behind him, putting his own body between his son and this woman he suddenly realized he knew nothing about. "Get away from my son right now." "Daddy, wait." Oliver's voice was small and scared, but not scared of Grace, scared of his father. "She wasn't hurting me, she was just—" "Oliver, go to your room." "But Daddy, you don't understand. She was teaching me how to—" "I said go to your room, now." "Daddy, please, just listen for 1 second. Now." The word came out as a roar. Oliver's eyes filled with tears. He looked at Grace, then at his father, then at Grace again, and something in that look made Marcus's stomach turn. His son was looking at the maid for permission. His son was looking at this stranger instead of his own father. Oliver ran. His footsteps echoed on the marble stairs. A door slammed somewhere above them. Then silence. Grace had not moved. She stood with her hands still raised, her dark eyes watching Marcus with an expression he could not read. Not fear, not anger, not guilt, resignation, like she had been waiting for this moment since the day she walked through his door. "Mr. Wellington, your son was not hurt by me. If you would just give me 60 seconds to explain what you saw." "I have eyes." Marcus's voice was ice, cold, controlled. The voice he used when he was about to destroy a competitor in a boardroom. The voice that had made grown men tremble and billion-dollar companies fall. "I see the bruises on my son's face. I see you with your hands all over my child. What I do not see is any explanation that makes what I just witnessed acceptable." "I was teaching him." "Teaching him what?" Marcus stepped closer, using his height, using his presence, using every weapon he had. Teaching him to keep secrets from his father. Teaching him to look at you instead of me. Teaching him that some stranger matters more than his own family. That is not what was happening. Then what was happening? Because from where I was standing, it looked like you had my son under some kind of spell. It looked like you had been doing something to him that made him trust you more than he trusts me. It looked like I was the only person in this house who has paid attention to your son in 3 years. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Grace's eyes went wide like she had surprised herself with the outburst. Her hands dropped to her sides. Her chest heaved with emotion she was fighting to control. "I apologize." Her voice was quiet now. "Careful. That was out of line. You are my employer. I had no right to speak to you that way." "No, you didn't." "I will pack my things and be gone within the hour." She turned toward the service quarters. Her footsteps were silent on the marble floors. At the doorway, she paused without looking back. "Mr. Wellington." Marcus did not respond. "Your son is the bravest person I have ever met. Whatever you think of me, whatever you believe happened here today, you should know that. Oliver has a heart that most adults could only dream of having. He sees people that others ignore. He cares about people that others throw away." Her voice cracked. "He is exactly like his mother. You should be proud of him." Then she was gone. Marcus stood alone in the living room, surrounded by furniture Elizabeth had chosen, surrounded by art they had bought together on their honeymoon in Paris, surrounded by memories of a life that had ended 3 years ago on a hospital bed while he held her hand and begged God for just one more day. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. What had he just done? He found Oliver in his bedroom, curled on the bed in the fetal position, clutching a framed photograph of Elizabeth to his chest like it was the only thing keeping him alive. The boy's shoulders shook with silent sobs. His small body trembled with grief that was far too heavy for a 7-year-old to carry. Marcus stood in the doorway, frozen. He had not been in this room in months. He had not tucked his son into bed since Elizabeth died. He had not read him a story or checked for monsters under the bed or done any of the things fathers were supposed to do. He had paid other people to do those things. And now he was paying the price. "Hey, buddy." Oliver did not look up. Marcus crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress barely dipped under his weight. He reached out to touch his son's shoulder, then stopped suddenly, unsure if he still had the right. "I need you to tell me what happened. I need you to tell me who hurt you." "She wasn't hurting me." Oliver's voice was muffled by the pillow. "Why won't anybody ever listen?" "I am listening now. Tell me who gave you those bruises." "You won't understand." "Try me." Oliver sat up slowly. His face was streaked with tears. His golden brown eyes. Elizabeth's eyes were red and swollen and filled with a pain Marcus could not identify. "There's a boy at school. His name is Noah Chen. He's 8 years old. He can't hear anything. He was born deaf." Marcus frowned. "You got in a fight with a deaf kid?" "I didn't fight him." Oliver's voice rose suddenly fierce. "Nobody fights him. Nobody even talks to him. Nobody sits with him at lunch. Nobody picks him for teams. Nobody does anything with him because they don't know how. He just sits alone every single day in the corner of the cafeteria by himself while everyone else ignores him like he doesn't even exist. The passion in Oliver's voice surprised Marcus. He had never heard his son speak with such intensity about anything. So what happened? Last Thursday, I tried to talk to him. Oliver wiped his nose with his sleeve. I just wanted to say hi. I just wanted him to know that someone saw him, but he couldn't understand what I was saying, and I couldn't understand what he was trying to tell me, and he got frustrated, and he pushed me, and I fell into the brick wall on the playground. Oliver's hand went to his bruised cheek. It was an accident, Daddy. He didn't mean to hurt me. He was just so frustrated because nobody ever understands him. Nobody ever even tries. Marcus stared at his son, at the bruises, at the tears, at the fierce defense of a boy who had hurt him. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't the school call me? I didn't report it. Why not? Because if I told, they would expel him. Oliver's voice cracked. He's already been to 5 schools. His mom told Grace. They keep kicking him out because he gets angry sometimes. But he only gets angry because nobody will talk to him. Nobody will learn how to understand him. Everyone just gives up and throws him away like he's garbage. Tears spilled down Oliver's cheeks. I didn't want to be another person who threw him away. I didn't want to be another person who gave up. Marcus's throat tightened. He thought about all the people he had thrown away over the years, all the employees he had fired without a second thought, all the relationships he had abandoned when they became inconvenient, all the friends who had tried to reach out after Elizabeth died only to be pushed away because Marcus could not bear to feel anything at all. He thought about Oliver, about all the bedtimes he had missed, all the conversations he had avoided, all the ways he had thrown his own son away without even realizing it. So what does Grace have to do with this? Oliver's face changed. The tears were still there, but something else appeared beneath them. Hope. Desperate, fragile hope. I asked her if she knew how to help, because she's smart, Daddy. She's really smart, and she actually listens when I talk. She doesn't just nod and look at her phone like Mrs. Patterson used to do. She actually hears me. Marcus flinched at the accusation beneath the words. Mrs. Patterson had been Oliver's nanny before Grace. Marcus had never noticed that she didn't listen to his son. He had never noticed anything at all. Grace told me her little brother was deaf. Oliver continued, the words tumbling out now. His name was Daniel. She learned sign language when she was 9 years old so she could talk to him, so he would know that someone in the world understood him. Sign language. The strange hand movements. Grace's fingers on Oliver's face, positioning his hands, showing him how to form the shapes. Not harm. Not abuse. Not some dark ritual. A language. She's been teaching me so I can talk to Noah. Oliver's eyes were bright now. So I can be his friend. So he won't have to be alone anymore. Marcus felt the floor shift beneath him. Everything he had assumed. Everything he had believed. Everything he had accused Grace of doing. They were all wrong. Why didn't you tell me? The words came out as a whisper. Oliver looked away. His small shoulders slumped. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. Because you were always working. And when you do come home, you look so tired, so sad, like... He trailed off. Like what? Like talking to me makes you more tired. Like being around me makes you sadder. Like you wish you were somewhere else. Anywhere else. The words hit Marcus harder than any punch ever could. He opened his mouth to deny it, to tell his son that it wasn't true, that he loved being around him, that Oliver was the most important thing in his life. But he couldn't say any of those things, because they would be lies, and Oliver would know they were lies. Because for 3 years, Marcus's actions had spoken louder than any words ever could. I didn't want to make it worse. Oliver continued, still not meeting his father's eyes. I didn't want to be another problem you had to deal with, another thing that made you sad. So I asked Grace instead, because she actually wanted to help, because she actually cared. Marcus pulled his son into his arms, held him tight, felt the small body trembling against his chest, felt 3 years of distance collapsing in a single moment. You could never make anything worse. His voice was thick with tears he refused to let fall. You hear me. You are not a problem. You are not a burden. You are my son. And I am so sorry. I'm so sorry I made you feel like you couldn't come to me. Oliver buried his face in his father's shoulder. his small arms wrapped around Marcus's neck. And for the first time in 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days, Marcus Wellington held his son like a father should. But even as he held Oliver, a sick feeling settled in his stomach, because he had just fired the only person who had actually been paying attention to his child. He had looked at Grace Johnson like she was a monster. He had accused her of the one thing she would never do, and she was probably already packing her bags. "Stay here, buddy." Marcus kissed the top of Oliver's head. "I need to go fix something." He found Grace in the small room off the kitchen. The room that came with the job. The room he had never bothered to enter in 21 days. Her suitcase lay open on the narrow bed, half filled with neatly folded clothes. A Bible sat on top. A framed photograph rested beside it, showing a young man with kind eyes, his hands frozen mid-gesture. Next to the photograph was a small wooden cross worn smooth by years of handling. She did not look up when Marcus knocked on the open door. "I will be gone in 30 minutes, ahead of schedule." "Grace, please wait." "There is nothing to wait for, Mr. Wellington." Her voice was steady, practiced. The voice of someone who had been dismissed so many times, she had learned to expect it. "You made the correct decision. I overstepped my boundaries. I should have informed you about Oliver's situation. I should have requested permission before teaching him anything. I forgot my place. You were teaching my son to help another child. I was the help." She finally turned, and Marcus saw the tear tracks on her dark cheeks, saw the pain in her eyes that she was trying so hard to hide. "I forgot that. I won't forget it again." The words cut deeper than any accusation she could have made, because Marcus heard what she was really saying. She was saying that rich people like him always saw her as less than. She was saying that no matter how much she cared, no matter how much she gave, she would always be just the help. She was saying that she had learned this lesson 100 times before, and she should have known better than to hope this time would be different. Marcus had never thought of himself as that kind of person, but his actions today had proved otherwise. "Can I sit down?" Grace hesitated. Her eyes searched his face looking for something. Sincerity, maybe, or another trap. Finally, she nodded toward a small chair by the window. Marcus sat. The room was smaller than his closet, clean and simple. A few personal items arranged with care. He looked at the photograph again at the young man with the kind eyes. "Is that Daniel, Grace's face softened for just a moment before the walls went back up. "Yes." "Oliver told me about him, told me he was born deaf." "Did he tell you what happened to him?" "No." Grace sat on the edge of the bed, maintaining the distance between them, her hands folded in her lap. Her posture was rigid, guarded. "Daniel was the best person I ever knew." Her voice was quiet but steady. "Our father left when Danny was 2 years old, just walked out one day and never came back. Our mother worked 3 jobs trying to keep us fed. She didn't have time to learn sign language. She barely had time to sleep." She paused, her fingers twisting together in her lap. "So Danny grew up in silence. Complete silence. He could see our lips moving, but he couldn't understand what we were saying. He could see us laughing, but he didn't know why. He could see the whole world happening around him, but he couldn't participate. He was trapped inside his own head with no way out." Marcus thought about Oliver, about all the times he had been right there in the same room with his son, physically present but emotionally absent. About all the times Oliver had tried to talk to him only to be met with distraction, with disinterest, with silence. "I was 9 years old when I decided to learn sign language," Grace continued. "I stayed up every night with library books, practicing the alphabet, memorizing words. I made flashcards. I watched videos. I did everything I could to break through that wall." Her eyes glistened with tears. "And then one day I signed 'I love you' to Danny, and he signed it back, and I saw his face light up like I had given him the whole world, because for the first time in his life someone was actually talking to him. Someone actually saw him." "Where is he now?" The question hung in the air. Grace's face tightened. The tears she had been holding back finally spilled over. "Car accident, 3 years ago. Drunk driver ran a red light at 40 miles an hour. Danny was walking home from his job at the library. He never heard the car coming. 3 years. The same amount of time since Elizabeth died. Different tragedies, different losses, the same bottomless grief." "Grace, I am so sorry." "Don't." Her voice was sharp. "Don't apologize. Don't give me your condolences. Sorry doesn't bring people back. It just makes the person saying it feel better about themselves." Marcus deserved that. He deserved far worse. "Why did you take this job?" he asked. With your experience with your education, you could be doing anything. You could be teaching at a school for the deaf. You could be training interpreters. You could be making a real difference." Grace laughed, but there was no humor in it. Only bitterness. Only pain. "Do you know how much teaching assistants make at schools for the deaf? Mr. Wellington, $32,000 a year. In New York City. That's barely enough for a studio apartment in Queens and ramen noodles for dinner every night." She looked around the tiny room. At the narrow bed. At the bare walls. At the suitcase she was packing. After Danny died, I couldn't go back to that school. I couldn't look at those children and not see his face. I couldn't sign good morning without hearing his voice in my head. So I found other work. Cleaning houses, watching children, taking care of people who had more money than time. Her eyes met his. There was no accusation in them. Only truth. "I took this job because it paid well, because the room was clean and the hours were reasonable, and I thought it would be simple. Just clean the house and watch the child. Nothing complicated. Nothing that would break my heart." She looked at the photograph of Daniel. "But then I met Oliver, and I saw something in him that I hadn't seen in a long time. He noticed me, not as the help, not as the maid, as a person. He asked about my day. He wanted to know my favorite color. He showed me pictures he had drawn and asked if I thought they were good." Tears streamed down her face. "And then he came to me with this impossible request. He wanted to learn sign language so he could talk to a deaf boy at school that everyone else had given up on. A 7-year-old child looked at another child's pain and said, 'I want to fix that.' How was I supposed to say no?" Marcus had no answer. "I know I should have told you." Grace wiped her eyes. "I know I should have asked permission, but every time I thought about it, I remembered how Oliver described you. Always working, always tired, always sad, and I thought..." She stopped herself. "You thought what..." "It's not my place to say." "Say it anyway." Grace met his eyes. There was no fear in her gaze, no deference, only the truth. "I thought you wouldn't care enough to notice." The words landed like a knife in Marcus's chest. Because she was right. If he had come home at his usual time tonight, he never would have seen Grace teaching Oliver. He never would have known about the sign language or Noah Chen or any of it. He would have walked past his son's bedroom without looking inside. He would have poured himself a whiskey and answered emails until midnight. He would have continued his slow disappearance from his son's life without ever realizing what he was losing. "You were right." Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "I wouldn't have noticed. I haven't noticed anything in 3 years. Not Oliver's loneliness, not his courage, not the fact that he's been reaching out to me every single day and I've been too wrapped up in my own grief to see it." He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the Manhattan skyline, all those glittering lights, all that wealth and power, and felt more empty than he ever had in his life. "My wife Elizabeth used to say that I had a gift for seeing opportunities that other people missed. That's how I built my company, by noticing things that everyone else overlooked, by finding value in places no one else thought to look." He turned to face Grace. "But I couldn't see my own son. I couldn't see what was right in front of me. And today, when I walked in and found you with him, I didn't see a woman teaching him sign language. I saw a threat. I saw a monster. I saw everything I was afraid of, and I attacked." Grace was silent, watching him, waiting. "I am not asking you to forgive me," Marcus said. "I am not asking you to stay. I have no right to ask you for anything, but I need you to know that I am sorry. Not the kind of sorry that makes me feel better about myself. The kind of sorry that means I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you, and I know I don't deserve a second chance." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic far below. Then Grace reached out and picked up the photograph of Daniel. "My brother used to say that God has a terrible sense of humor." Her voice was soft. "He would say that the Almighty puts people in all the wrong places at all the wrong times, just to see if they're paying enough attention to figure it out. Did they figure it out? Sometimes." She traced Daniel's face with her finger, the ones who were humble enough to admit when they were wrong. Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and looked at the screen. Whitmore Academy. His blood went cold. "Mr. Wellington, this is Headmaster Crawford. I'm calling to inform you that we need to see you in my office tomorrow morning at 8:30 sharp. There has been an incident involving your son, and I'm afraid we need to discuss Noah Chen's immediate removal from our school." "Removal? What do you mean, removal?" "I mean expulsion." "Mr. Wellington, effective immediately, the board has scheduled an emergency meeting. Given the violent nature of Noah Chen's behavior and the injury to your son, we have no choice but to act decisively. I trust you understand." The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone. His mind raced. Oliver's words echoed in his head. He's already been to 5 schools. They keep kicking him out. What's wrong? Grace's voice pulled him back to the present. He looked at her, at this woman he had accused and dismissed and misjudged, and made a decision. The school is expelling Noah Chen tomorrow. Emergency board meeting. Grace's face went pale. No, they can't do that. That little boy has nowhere else to go. I know. His mother has already tried 5 schools. Nobody will take him. If Whitmore expels him, he'll end up in some underfunded public program with no resources and no support. It will destroy him. I know. Marcus put his phone away. He looked at Grace, at the suitcase, at the Bible on top of her clothes. You said God puts people in the wrong places at the wrong times to see if they're paying attention. Grace nodded slowly. I think I'm finally paying attention, Marcus said, and I think I need your help. My help, you just fired me. I know, and I'm asking you to ignore that. I'm asking you to come with me tomorrow, to that board meeting, to help me fight for a little boy that everyone else has given up on. Grace stared at him. Why would you do that? You don't even know Noah. You've never met him. Because Oliver asked me to. Marcus's voice was firm. Because my son saw something in that little boy that the rest of the world was too blind to see. And I'm done being blind. I'm done being absent. I'm done being the kind of man who throws people away because it's easier than trying to help them. He held out his hand. Will you help me? Grace looked at his hand, looked at his face, looked at the photograph of Daniel one more time. Then she reached out and took it. Yes, her voice was strong, certain. For Noah, and for Oliver, and for my brother. They shook hands, and something shifted in the room. Something that had been broken began very slowly to heal. That night, Marcus did not sleep. He sat in Oliver's room until 3 a.m, watching his son breathe, trying to remember the last time they had really talked. Really connected. Really felt like a family instead of 2 strangers living in the same house. He could not remember. At some point, he must have dozed off in the chair beside Oliver's bed, because when he opened his eyes, morning light was streaming through the windows and the smell of pancakes was drifting up from the kitchen. Grace was still here. She had stayed. Marcus found her at the stove, an apron tied around her waist, a spatula in her hand. Oliver sat at the kitchen island, watching her with adoring eyes, practicing sign language with his small fingers. Daddy? Oliver's face lit up when he saw his father. Grace is teaching me how to say good morning in sign language. Want to see? He held up his hands and made a series of gestures. Grace nodded approvingly. Perfect. She smiled. He's a fast learner. Marcus stood in the doorway of his own kitchen watching his son and the woman he had almost driven away, and felt something crack open in his chest. Something frozen. Something that had been locked away since the day Elizabeth died. I made pancakes, Grace said, setting a plate on the counter. Oliver told me they're your favorite. They were Elizabeth's favorite, Marcus said quietly. I just pretended to like them so she would make them more often. Grace paused. Oliver looked between them, not understanding the weight of the moment. Then maybe it's time to find out if you actually like them, Grace said. For real this time. Marcus sat down at the island next to his son. He picked up his fork. He took a bite. They were delicious. I might actually like pancakes, he said. Oliver laughed. The sound filled the kitchen like music, like sunlight, like hope. Daddy, are we going to help Noah today? Marcus looked at Grace. She nodded. Yes, buddy, we're going to try. What if they say no, Hempel? Then we'll try harder. Oliver considered this. His small face was serious, thoughtful, so much like Elizabeth in that moment that Marcus's heart ached. Grace says that sometimes God uses regular people to do his work, Oliver said. She says that's what Daniel always believed, that when someone helps someone else, that's God working through them. Marcus looked at Grace. She was watching Oliver with tears in her eyes. Do you think that's true, Daddy? Do you think God wants us to help Noah? Marcus thought about the last 3 years, about the grief and the isolation and the slow death of his relationship with his own son. He thought about coming home early yesterday, about walking in at exactly the wrong moment, about seeing something that looked terrible but was actually beautiful. He thought about Grace, about her brother Daniel, about the way she had taught Oliver sign language without asking for anything in return. He thought about Elizabeth, about what she would say if she could see him now, if she could see the man he had become versus the man she had married. I think God wants us to love each other, Marcus said slowly. I think he wants us to see each other, really see each other, and I think when we do that, When we actually pay attention to the people around us, we can do things we never thought possible. Oliver nodded like this made perfect sense. That's kind of what Grace said. She said that's what she learned from Daniel. She's a smart woman. I know, Oliver grinned. That's why I asked her to teach me. The drive to Whitmore Academy took 30 minutes. Marcus drove himself for the first time in years. Grace sat in the passenger seat reviewing notes she had made about Noah Chen. Oliver sat in the back, his face pressed against the window, watching the city blur past. Daddy? Yeah, buddy? What if they won't listen? What if they expel Noah anyway? Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. His son's eyes were filled with fear. The same fear Marcus had seen last night when Oliver thought Grace was leaving. Then we'll find another way to help him. But what if there isn't another way? There's always another way, Grace said, turning in her seat to face Oliver. When Daniel was growing up, everyone told my mother there was no way he could succeed. No way he could learn. No way he could live a normal life. And you know what she did? Oliver shook his head. She ignored them. She found teachers who believed in him. She learned sign language herself, even though she worked 3 jobs and had no time. She fought for him every single day until the world started fighting for him too. Grace reached back and squeezed Oliver's hand. Noah has you fighting for him now, and your father, and me. That's 3 people more than he had yesterday. And that's how change starts, one person at a time. Oliver nodded, but Marcus could see the worry still lurking in his eyes. What if they think I'm lying? What if they think I'm just making excuses for Noah because he hurt me? Then you tell them the truth, Marcus said. You tell them exactly what you told me last night, about how Noah sits alone every day, about how nobody talks to him, about how you just wanted to be his friend. But what if the truth isn't enough? Marcus pulled into the Whitmore Academy parking lot. The building loomed before them, all stone and ivy and old money prestige. He turned to face his son. Oliver, listen to me. The truth is always enough. Sometimes it takes time for people to hear it. Sometimes it takes courage to keep telling it when nobody wants to listen. But the truth has a power that lies can never match. It changes things. It opens hearts. It makes the impossible possible. He put his hand on Oliver's cheek. You taught me that. Yesterday, when you told me the truth about Grace and Noah, even though you were afraid of how I would react. You were brave enough to tell the truth, and it changed everything. It changed me. Oliver's eyes filled with tears. I was really scared. I know you were. That's what makes it brave. Being scared and doing it anyway? Grace wiped her eyes. Your father is right, Oliver. Truth and love. Those are the 2 most powerful forces in the universe. Everything else is just noise. They got out of the car and walked toward the entrance of Whitmore Academy. Marcus held Oliver's hand. Grace walked beside them. 3 people who had been strangers 24 hours ago now bound together by something stronger than blood. Purpose. Headmaster Crawford's office smelled like leather and lies. Oak panels lined the walls. Diplomas from elite universities hung in gilded frames. Photographs showed Crawford shaking hands with senators and CEOs and celebrities, his smile identical in each one. The man himself sat behind a massive desk, silver hair, perfectly styled face arranged in professional concern that did not quite reach his eyes. Mr. Wellington, thank you for coming on such short notice. Crawford's gaze flickered to Grace, then back to Marcus. I wasn't aware you would be bringing guests. This is Grace Johnson. She works for me. Ah. The single syllable dripped with condescension. The help. She has a master's degree in deaf education from Columbia University, Marcus said. She worked at the Brooklyn School for the Deaf for 6 years. She has more experience with children like Noah Chen than anyone in this building. Crawford's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. How fortunate. However, I'm not sure her expertise will be relevant to today's discussion. The board has already made its decision regarding Mr. Chen's enrollment. Then perhaps you should unmake it. I beg your pardon. You heard me. Marcus sat down without being invited. Oliver climbed into the chair beside him. Grace remained standing, her posture rigid, her eyes fixed on Crawford. I want to know exactly what evidence the board reviewed before deciding to expel an 8-year-old deaf child. Crawford's face flushed. Mr. Wellington, I understand you may feel some sympathy for the Chen boy given your son's involvement in the incident, but I assure you the board has acted with the utmost consideration for all students. Noah Chen has a documented history of violent behavior. Last week's assault on Oliver was simply the final straw. It wasn't an assault. Oliver's voice cut through the room. small but fierce. "It was an accident." Crawford's smile became patronizing. "Oliver, I appreciate your loyalty to your classmate, but the facts speak for themselves. You were injured, you have bruises. That constitutes assault in any reasonable, I fell." Oliver stood up in his chair, his small hands balled into fists at his sides. "Noah pushed me because he was frustrated because nobody would talk to him, not because he wanted to hurt me, because he was lonely and scared and didn't know what else to do." Crawford's eyes widened. He was not accustomed to being interrupted by 7-year-olds. "Young man, I understand you may feel—" "You don't understand anything." Oliver's voice rose. "You don't understand what it's like to be trapped inside yourself. You don't understand what it's like when everyone ignores you. You don't understand what it's like to scream and have nobody hear you." Tears streamed down his face. "But I do, because that's how I felt after my mom died, like I was invisible, like nobody could see me, like I was screaming inside my own head and nobody would listen." He looked at Grace. Until Grace came. She listened. She saw me. She taught me that I wasn't invisible, and that's what I want to do for Noah. I want him to know that someone sees him, someone hears him, someone cares. The office door opened. A woman entered. Late 30s, exhausted eyes wearing scrubs that still had hospital stains on them. She looked like she had run all the way from her night shift. Behind her was a small boy, black hair, dark eyes, thin shoulders hunched forward like he was trying to make himself as small as possible. Noah Chen. "I'm sorry we're late," the woman's voice was hoarse. "I couldn't find anyone to cover for me at the hospital. I came as fast as I could." Noah pressed against her side, his eyes darting around the room with barely contained terror. When his gaze landed on Oliver, something shifted in his face. Recognition. Hope. Fear. Oliver walked over to him. Slowly, carefully, the way you would approach a frightened animal. Then he raised his hands and signed 3 words. "I am here." Noah's eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at his mother, then back at Oliver, then signed something rapid and desperate. "He's asking if this is real." Grace translated her voice thick with emotion. "He's asking if you're really his friend." Oliver signed back. "Yes, real, friend, forever." Noah burst into tears. He threw his arms around Oliver and held on like he was drowning, and Oliver was the only solid ground in the world. Mrs. Chen watched her son embrace the boy who had just defended him, and something shattered in her face. All the exhaustion, all the fear, all the years of fighting a battle she was slowly losing. "Who are you people?" she whispered. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus stood. "My name is Marcus Wellington. My son Oliver is in Noah's class, and I'm here because my son taught me something yesterday that I should have learned a long time ago." He looked at the 2 boys still holding each other, still communicating in a language that required no sound. "He taught me that love isn't something you feel, it's something you do, and when you see someone who needs help, you don't walk past. You don't look away, you stop, you pay attention, and you fight." Crawford cleared his throat. "Mr. Wellington, while this is all very touching, the board's decision is going to change." Marcus turned to face him. "Because I'm prepared to make Whitmore Academy an offer it cannot refuse." Crawford's eyes narrowed. "What kind of offer? $20 million. The room went silent. "I will write a check for $20 million to fund a comprehensive deaf education program at this school. Interpreters, training for staff, resources for students with hearing impairments. Everything Noah Chen needs to succeed, and everything future students like him will need." Mrs. Chen's hand flew to her mouth. $20 million, Marcus repeated, "on one condition, which is Noah Chen stays. He continues his enrollment at Whitmore Academy. He receives the support and accommodations he deserves. And this school becomes a model for inclusive education instead of another institution that throws away children who are different." Crawford's face had gone pale. That's very generous, Mr. Wellington, but the board has already voted. The decision has been made. To reverse it now would require, then unreverse it." Marcus stepped closer to the headmaster's desk. He placed both hands flat on the polished wood and leaned forward. "Let me be clear, Headmaster Crawford. I know how this works. I know that private schools like Whitmore live and die by their donors. I know that you've been trying to raise $15 million for a new STEM center for the past 3 years. I know that you're behind on your fundraising goals and the board is getting nervous." Crawford's face twitched. "I am offering you $20 million. That's more than you need, more than you could have imagined. And all I'm asking in return is that you do the right thing. that you give one little boy a chance to prove that he belongs here just as much as any other child. Marcus straightened. Or you can expel Noah Chen. You can throw him away like every other school has done. You can send him back out into a world that doesn't understand him and doesn't care to try. And I will take my $20 million and donate it to your biggest competitor. And then I will make certain that every parent in this city knows exactly why Whitmore Academy chose to reject a disabled child instead of teaching their teachers how to communicate with him. The silence that followed was deafening. Crawford looked at Marcus, at Grace, at the two boys still holding each other, at Mrs. Chen, who was crying silently, her hand pressed over her heart. "The board meets in 1 hour," he said finally. "I will present your offer, but I cannot guarantee anything." "Then you better be very persuasive," Marcus said, "because Noah Chen's future depends on it, and so does this school's." He turned and walked toward the door, then stopped. "One more thing. If the board accepts my offer, Grace Johnson will be the one training your staff. She will design the program. She will hire the interpreters. She will make sure that no child in this school ever feels as alone as Noah has felt." Crawford's jaw tightened. "That's not customary." "I don't care about customary," Marcus said. "I care about results, and Grace Johnson gets results. You can either work with her or you can find another donor. Your choice." He walked out without looking back. Grace followed. Oliver and Noah came last, still holding hands, still signing back and forth in their own private language. Mrs. Chen caught up to them in the hallway. "Wait, please wait." They stopped. She stood before them, this exhausted woman who had been fighting alone for so long, and the tears poured down her face. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this? You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. Your son was hurt because of my son. You should hate us." Marcus looked at Oliver, at his son's bruised face, at the courage and love and determination in his eyes. "My son doesn't hate Noah," he said. "He loves him. And he taught me that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's choosing to see someone when the world wants to look away. It's choosing to fight for someone when everyone else has given up." He put his hand on Mrs. Chen's shoulder. "Your son isn't broken. He isn't a problem to be solved. He's a child who needs to be understood, and my son understood that long before I did. So if you want to thank anyone, thank Oliver. Thank the 7-year-old who decided that one lonely boy was worth learning a whole new language for." And Mrs. Chen pulled Oliver into a fierce hug. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Oliver hugged her back. Then he turned to Noah and signed something that made the other boy smile through his tears. "What did he say?" Marcus asked Grace. "He said, 'This is just the beginning.'" 1 hour later, they stood outside the boardroom while 7 of the wealthiest and most powerful parents in Manhattan decided Noah Chen's fate. Grace paced the hallway. Mrs. Chen sat in a plastic chair. Noah's head in her lap, the boy finally sleeping after hours of fear and hope and exhaustion. Oliver sat next to Marcus, their shoulders touching the silence between them, comfortable instead of empty. "Daddy? Yeah, buddy." "What if they say no? Then we find another way." "What other way?" Marcus looked at his son, at this brave, compassionate, incredible child he had almost lost to his own grief. "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out together. That's what families do." Oliver smiled. "Grace is family now, right?" Marcus looked at Grace, who had stopped pacing and was watching them. She met his eye. Something passed between them. Understanding. Gratitude. The beginning of something neither of them had expected. "Yeah, buddy," Marcus said. "I think she is." The boardroom doors opened. Headmaster Crawford stepped out. His face was impossible to read. "Mr. Wellington, the board would like to speak with you." Marcus stood, his heart hammered in his chest. He walked toward the boardroom, feeling Grace and Oliver and Mrs. Chen watching him, feeling the weight of Noah Chen's future on his shoulders. He stepped inside. 7 board members sat around a long mahogany table. Victoria Ashford, the board president, sat at the head, 60 years old. Old money, old values. Her face was as unreadable as Crawford's. "Mr. Wellington," she said, "please have a seat." He sat. "We have reviewed your proposal," she continued. $20 million for a comprehensive deaf education program. It's an extraordinarily generous offer." "It's a fair offer," Marcus said, "for a fair outcome." Victoria Ashford studied him for a long moment. Then she looked at her fellow board members. Something passed between them. A decision already made. "The board has voted," she said. 5-2. Marcus's heart stopped. Noah Chen will be allowed to continue his enrollment at Whitmore Academy contingent on the implementation of the support services you have proposed. The breath rushed out of Marcus's lungs. However, Victoria Ashford continued and her voice hardened. There are those on this board who believe we are making a mistake, who believe that children like Noah Chen belong in specialized facilities, not elite preparatory academies. She leaned forward. Prove us wrong, Mr. Wellington. Prove that your money and your idealism can actually make a difference. Because if Noah Chen has another incident, if there is any more violence, the board will not hesitate to revisit this decision. There won't be another incident, Marcus said, because Noah isn't violent. He's frustrated. He's isolated. He's been screaming for help in a language nobody bothered to learn. But that changes today. That changes right now. He stood. Thank you for your decision. I'll have my lawyers draw up the paperwork this afternoon. He turned to leave. Mr. Wellington. He looked back. Victoria Ashford was watching him with something that might have been respect, or might have been warning. I've been on this board for 23 years. I've seen a lot of parents come through these doors fighting for their children, fighting for their beliefs. Most of them give up when the fight gets hard. She paused. Don't be one of them. Marcus held her gaze. I've spent 3 years giving up on everything that mattered. On my son, on my life, on myself. I'm done giving up. He walked out of the boardroom. Grace was waiting in the hallway. So was Mrs. Chen, now standing Noah awake and clinging to her hand. So was Oliver, his small face tight with fear and hope and everything in between. They looked at Marcus, waiting, hoping, praying. He smiled. He's staying. Oliver screamed with joy. He ran to Noah and threw his arms around him. Mrs. Chen collapsed against the wall, sobbing. Grace pressed her hands to her face, tears streaming through her fingers. Marcus watched them. These people who had been strangers yesterday, who were family today. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Wellington, this is Victoria Ashford. I expect to see real results from this program, and I expect you to be personally involved in its implementation. Not your money, not your staff. You. The children are watching. Don't let them down. Marcus looked at Oliver, at his son laughing and signing with Noah, at the joy on his face, at the bruises that were already starting to fade. I won't, he whispered. Never again. The celebration lasted exactly 47 seconds. Mrs. Chen was still crying against the wall when her phone rang. She looked at the screen and her face went white. It's the hospital. Her voice cracked. I was supposed to be back 2 hours ago. They're threatening to fire me. She looked at Noah, then at Marcus, then at the phone still ringing in her trembling hand. Go, Grace said immediately. We'll watch Noah. Go. I can't just leave him with strangers. He doesn't know you. He'll panic if I... Mom? Noah signed his small hands, moving with fierce determination. Oliver translated without being asked. He says go. He says he trusts Oliver. He says he'll be okay. Mrs. Chen stared at her son. At this little boy who had spent his whole life afraid, who had been thrown away by 5 schools, who had every reason to distrust the world. And here he was telling her to leave him with people he had just met. Are you sure, baby? Noah signed again. Oliver laughed. He says stop calling him baby. He's almost 9. Mrs. Chen let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. She knelt down and pulled Noah into a fierce hug, signing something against his back that Marcus could not see. Then she was gone, running down the hallway, her scrubs still stained, with someone else's blood, her heart still breaking with gratitude and fear and hope. Marcus looked at Grace. What do we do now? Now we take these boys home and feed them lunch, Grace said, and then we start planning, because Victoria Ashford wasn't joking. She wants results, and she wants them fast. 2 hours later, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by papers, spreadsheets, and the remains of 4 grilled cheese sandwiches. Grace sat across from him, her laptop open, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Oliver and Noah were in the living room, communicating in a mixture of sign language and drawings and the universal language of 7-year-old boys who had found their first real friend. The budget works, Grace said, not looking up from her screen. $20 million is more than enough for interpreters, staff training, classroom modifications, and a scholarship fund for deaf students who can't afford tuition. What about you? Grace stopped typing. What about me? I told Crawford you would design the program, that you would hire the interpreters, that you would run everything. Marcus leaned forward. I meant it, but I never actually asked if you wanted the job. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Her eyes drifted to the living room where Oliver was teaching Noah how to draw a dinosaur. 3 weeks ago, I was cleaning bathrooms and folding laundry. Her voice was soft. I had given up on ever working with deaf children again. I had convinced myself that part of my life was over. She looked at Marcus. And then your son asked me to teach him sign language, and everything changed. Is that a yes? It's a yes. She smiled, but there was something fragile in it. On one condition? Name it. I don't want to be the help anymore. Her voice was steady, but Marcus could see the vulnerability beneath it. I don't want to be someone you pay to do a job. If I'm going to do this, I need to be a partner, an equal, someone whose opinion matters. Marcus held her gaze. Your opinion has always mattered, Grace. I was just too blind to see it. Then prove it, she said. Not with words, with actions, because I've heard a lot of promises from a lot of people and most of them turned out to be empty. I will, Marcus said. I promise. Grace nodded slowly, then she turned back to her laptop. We need to hire 3 full-time interpreters. I have contacts at Columbia who can recommend candidates. We also need to schedule staff training sessions, preferably starting next week. And we need to meet with Noah's teachers individually to assess their willingness to learn. Their willingness? Not everyone will be happy about this. Grace's voice hardened. Some people see deaf children as burdens, as problems, as inconveniences that disrupt their comfortable routines. We're going to face resistance, probably more than you expect. Then we'll overcome it. How? Marcus smiled. The same way I built my company, one obstacle at a time. The first obstacle came 3 days later. Marcus was in his office at Wellington Capital when his assistant buzzed him. Mr. Wellington? There's a woman here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. Her name is Patricia Harrington. Marcus frowned. The name was familiar. Patricia Harrington, one of the board members at Whitmore Academy, one of the 2 who had voted against Noah. Send her in. Patricia Harrington was exactly what Marcus expected. Mid-50s, blonde hair perfectly styled. Designer suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Diamond earrings that caught the light with every movement of her head. She walked into his office like she owned it. Mr. Wellington, thank you for seeing me without an appointment. Mrs. Harrington, please sit down. She sat, crossed her legs, folded her hands in her lap with practiced elegance. I'll get straight to the point. Her voice was smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. I'm here to discuss your donation to Whitmore Academy. What about it? I want you to withdraw it. Marcus blinked. Excuse me? I want you to withdraw your $20 million, Patricia said calmly. Tell Crawford the deal is off. Tell him you've changed your mind. Tell him whatever you want. Just make it go away. Why would I do that? Patricia's smile was cold. Because Noah Chen doesn't belong at Whitmore. He never did. And your money won't change that. All you're doing is delaying the inevitable. Marcus leaned back in his chair. The inevitable being what exactly? The boy is deaf, Mr. Wellington. Profoundly deaf. He can't hear his teachers. He can't participate in class discussions. He can't do half the things our curriculum requires. And no amount of interpreters or training or special accommodations will change that fundamental fact. That fundamental fact, Marcus repeated slowly. You mean the fact that he's disabled? I mean the fact that he doesn't fit. Patricia's voice sharpened. Whitmore Academy has standards, traditions, a reputation built over 130 years of excellence. And that reputation depends on selectivity, on ensuring that every student who walks through our doors is capable of meeting our expectations. Noah Chen is capable. Noah Chen is a liability. Patricia stood her elegance suddenly looking more like armor. He's already injured one student. He's disrupted countless classes. He's consumed resources that should be going to children who can actually benefit from them. Children who can hear, you mean. Children who belong. Patricia's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something ugly beneath. Look, Mr. Wellington, I understand you want to feel good about yourself. I understand you want to play the hero, but there are other charities you can donate to, other causes you can support, causes that won't drag down one of the finest institutions in this city. Marcus stood slowly. He walked around his desk until he was standing directly in front of Patricia Harrington. Mrs. Harrington, let me tell you something about myself. I built this company from nothing. I started with $1,000 and an idea, and I turned it into a multi-billion-dollar empire. You know how I did that. Patricia's eyes narrowed. I'm sure you're going to tell me. I did it by seeing value where other people saw liability, by investing in things that everyone else had given up on, by believing that potential matters more than pedigree. He leaned closer. Noah Chen has more potential in his little finger than half the students at your precious academy. He's survived 5 schools. 5 times he's been thrown away, and 5 times he's gotten back up and tried again. That's not a liability, Mrs. Harrington. That's strength. That's resilience. That's exactly the kind of character that your 130 years of tradition should be celebrating instead of trying to destroy. Patricia's face flushed. You have no idea what you're talking about. I have every idea, Marcus said. I have a son who saw what your entire institution missed. A 7-year-old boy who looked at Noah Chen and saw a friend instead of a problem. And I trust my son's judgment a hell of a lot more than I trust yours. This isn't over, Patricia hissed. No, it isn't. Marcus agreed. But the ending has already been written. Noah Chen is staying at Whitmore Academy. Your board already voted. And all your silk suits and diamond earrings won't change that. He walked to his office door and opened it. My assistant will show you out. Patricia Harrington gathered herself, straightened her shoulders, walked toward the door with all the dignity she could muster. At the threshold, she turned. You're going to regret this, Mr. Wellington. Mark my words. Before this is over, you're going to wish you had never heard the name Noah Chen. She walked out. Marcus closed the door behind her and let out a long breath. His hands were shaking, not with fear, with anger, the kind of anger that burned slow and deep and dangerous. His phone buzzed, a text from Grace. Oliver just taught Noah how to say best friend in sign language. Noah cried. I cried. Even the dog from next door who wandered into our yard somehow looked emotional. Just thought you should know. Marcus smiled despite himself. He typed back a response. Patricia Harrington just visited my office, tried to get me to withdraw the donation. 3 dots appeared. Then Grace's reply. Let me guess. You told her to go to hell? More or less? Good, because Oliver and Noah are planning a lemonade stand to raise money for deaf kids, and I don't have the heart to tell them $20 million is probably enough. Marcus laughed out loud. For the first time in 3 years, the sound didn't feel forced. 1 week later. The first staff training session at Whitmore Academy was scheduled for 4 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon. Grace had prepared for days. She had created handouts. She had practiced her presentation. She had anticipated every possible question and prepared every possible answer. What she had not anticipated was the hostility. Marcus arrived at the school just as the session was ending. He found Grace in the faculty lounge surrounded by coffee cups and crumpled papers and the lingering tension of a meeting that had gone badly wrong. What happened? Grace did not look up. 13 teachers were supposed to attend. 7 showed up. 2 of them left after 20 minutes. And Mrs. Henderson, the 3rd grade teacher, spent the entire session on her phone. Did anyone actually pay attention? 3 people, Grace's voice cracked. 3 teachers out of a staff of 42, and one of them only stayed because she has a deaf niece and already knows sign language. Marcus sat down across from her. This is just the beginning. People resist change. It means they don't want Noah here. Grace finally looked up, and Marcus saw the tears she was fighting to hold back. It means they've already decided he's not worth the effort. It means everything we're trying to do might fail before it even starts. It won't fail. How do you know? Because I won't let it. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. And neither will you. And neither will Oliver. And neither will Noah. We didn't come this far to give up because some teachers couldn't be bothered to put down their phones. Grace stared at their joined hands. She did not pull away. What do we do? We try again, Marcus said. And again, until they listen, until they understand, until they see what Oliver saw from the very beginning. Grace wiped her eyes. You sound like Daniel. Your brother, she nodded. He used to say that the world isn't changed by people who give up. It's changed by people who keep showing up even when nobody wants them there. Smart man? The smartest. Grace smiled through her tears. He would have liked you. I wish I could have met him. Me too. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Grace squeezed his hand and let go. Okay, she said, her voice stronger now. We try again, but this time we need a different approach. What kind of approach? We need allies, Grace said. Teachers who are genuinely willing to learn. Parents who support what we're doing. Students who can help Noah feel welcome. We can't force everyone to care, but we can build a community around the people who do. Where do we start? With Oliver? Grace smiled. He's already started a sign language club at lunch. 4 kids showed up yesterday. He taught them how to say hello, goodbye, and dinosaur. Dinosaur. Apparently, it's the most important word in any language when you're 7. Marcus laughed. Of course it is. 2 weeks later, the sign language club had grown from 4 students to 17. Oliver had appointed himself president, vice president, and official dinosaur consultant. Noah had become something he had never been before in his entire life. Popular. Marcus watched from the window of his car as Oliver and Noah walked out of school together, surrounded by a group of children who were all signing to each other. Some of the signs were wrong, some of them made no sense at all, but the laughter was real, the friendship was real, the joy on Noah's face was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. He's different, Mrs. Chen said softly. She was standing beside Marcus, having arrived early to pick up her son. I've never seen him like this. He used to come home from school crying. Now he comes home and won't stop talking about Oliver and the club and everything they did that day. Oliver's different too, Marcus said. He used to be so quiet, so withdrawn, now I can barely get him to stop talking long enough to eat dinner. Mrs. Chen laughed. Then her face grew serious. Mr. Wellington, I need to tell you something. What is it? I got a new job. Her eyes filled with tears. A better job. At a clinic that actually respects my schedule. That actually pays me what I'm worth. I can be home when Noah gets out of school now. I can help him with his homework. I can be his mother instead of just a ghost who sleeps on his couch between shifts. That's wonderful. It's because of you, her voice broke. Because of what you did. Because you saw my son when everyone else looked away. Because you fought for him when everyone else gave up. I didn't do it alone. No, you didn't. Mrs. Chen wiped her eyes. You had Grace. You had Oliver. You had people who believed in something bigger than themselves. And that's the most beautiful thing about all this. It wasn't one person saving my son. It was a family. The word hit Marcus like a wave. Family. He looked at Grace, who was walking toward them across the parking lot, a stack of papers in her arms and a smile on her face. He looked at Oliver, who was teaching Noah a complicated handshake that involved 3 different signs and a dinosaur roar. He looked at Mrs. Chen, this exhausted warrior of a mother who had finally found a moment of peace. Family. For 3 years, Marcus had believed that his family died with Elizabeth, that the word meant nothing anymore, that he would spend the rest of his life alone, surrounded by money and success and emptiness. But he had been wrong. Family wasn't just blood. It wasn't just marriage. It wasn't just the people you were born to or the people you chose. Family was the people who showed up, the people who stayed, the people who saw you at your worst and decided to love you anyway. Grace reached them slightly out of breath. Sorry I'm late. Mrs. Henderson actually wanted to practice sign language after class today. I think we might be getting through to her. That's the 3rd grade teacher? Mrs. Chen asked. The one who was on her phone the whole time. The same one. Grace grinned. Turns out her grandson was just diagnosed with hearing loss. Suddenly sign language doesn't seem like such a waste of time. Funny how that works, Marcus said. Funny isn't the word I'd use. Grace's smile faded slightly. More like tragic. It shouldn't take a personal connection to make people care about deaf children. But if that's what it takes, I'll use it. Oliver and Noah came running over their backpacks, bouncing, their faces flushed with excitement. Dad, guess what? What? Noah got picked first for kickball today. Oliver was practically vibrating with joy. First, Tommy Rodriguez always gets picked first, but today everybody wanted Noah because he's really fast and really good, and they actually wanted him on their team. Marcus looked at Noah. The boy was signing something to his mother, his hands moving so fast they were almost a blur. He says it was the best day of his life. Mrs. Chen translated her voice thick with tears. He says he felt like a regular kid for the first time ever. He is a regular kid, Oliver said fiercely. He's just a regular kid who talks with his hands instead of his mouth. What's wrong with that? Nobody had an answer, because there was nothing wrong with it at all. 1 month later, the change at Whitmore Academy was slow. It was messy. It was full of setbacks and frustrations and days when Grace came home ready to give up, but it was real. 18 teachers had now completed basic sign language training. The school had hired 2 full-time interpreters with a 3rd starting next month. A deaf awareness curriculum had been added to the 2nd grade classroom taught by Oliver himself, who had become something of a celebrity among his classmates. And Noah Chen had not had a single incident since the program began, not one. Marcus was in his office when the call came from Headmaster Crawford. Mr. Wellington, I thought you should know. Victoria Ashford has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow evening. Why, she's proposing a vote to terminate the deaf education program. Marcus's blood went cold. On what grounds? She claims the program is disruptive, that it's taking resources away from other students, that it's changing the fundamental character of the school. Crawford paused. She also claims that you've been exerting undue influence over school policy. That's ridiculous. I agree. But she has support, Mr. Wellington. Patricia Harrington has been very busy these past few weeks. She's been talking to parents, raising concerns, building a coalition of people who think the program has gone too far. Marcus gripped his phone so hard his knuckles went white. What do you need me to do? Come to the meeting, bring Grace, bring anyone who supports what we're doing. Crawford's voice dropped. Because if Victoria Ashford wins this vote, everything we've built will be destroyed. Marcus hung up and immediately called Grace. We have a problem. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 7 o'clock the following evening. By 6:30, the auditorium at Whitmore Academy was standing room only. Marcus had spent the day making calls, reaching out to every parent, every teacher, every supporter he could find. Grace had done the same. By the time they arrived at the school, they had assembled a small army of people who believed in what they were fighting for. But so had Victoria Ashford. She stood at the front of the auditorium, her white hair perfectly styled, her posture ramrod straight, her eyes scanning the crowd with barely concealed satisfaction. This is going to be ugly, Grace whispered. I know, Marcus said, but we didn't come this far to lose now. Victoria Ashford called the meeting to order. Her voice carried through the room like a cold wind. We are here tonight to vote on the continuation of the deaf education program implemented by Mr. Marcus Wellington. As many of you know, I have serious concerns about the direction this program has taken our school. She pressed a button and a screen behind her lit up with charts and graphs and numbers. In the 6 weeks since this program began, we have spent over $3 million on interpreters training and equipment, $3 million that could have been used for new science labs, expanded athletics, or scholarship funds for deserving students. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Additionally, our standardized test preparation time has been reduced by 15% to accommodate sign language instruction. Our teachers are being asked to learn a new skill set on top of their already demanding responsibilities. And for what? Victoria's voice sharpened. For one student. One child who, despite our best efforts, will never be able to fully participate in the Whitmore experience. One child whose presence here sends a message that our standards are negotiable, that our traditions are disposable, that anyone can walk through our doors regardless of whether they truly belong. Grace's hand found Marcus's. He squeezed it tight. I move that we terminate the deaf education program immediately, that we return Noah Chen's tuition and recommend placement in a specialized facility, and that we refund Mr. Wellington's donation so that he may direct his generosity toward a more appropriate cause. Victoria sat down. The room was silent. Headmaster Crawford stood. The floor is open for discussion. Mr. Wellington, would you like to respond? Marcus stood. His legs felt unsteady. His heart was pounding. But his voice when it came out was strong. Mrs. Ashford asked what we've gained from this program. Let me tell you what we've gained. He walked to the front of the room. We've gained 17 students who now know sign language. 17 children who have learned that communication isn't just about words. It's about connection. It's about seeing someone who is different and choosing to build a bridge instead of a wall. He looked at the crowd. We've gained 18 teachers who have expanded their skills, who have discovered that teaching isn't just about curriculum. It's about reaching every child, no matter how they learn, who have become better educators because they were challenged to grow. His voice rose. And we've gained Noah Chen, a little boy who used to sit alone at lunch every single day, ignored by his classmates, invisible to his teachers, screaming in silence while the world walked past. That little boy now has friends. He has a community. He has a future. Marcus pointed at Victoria Ashford. You want to know what this program cost $3 million. You want to know what it's worth? It's priceless. Because you cannot put a price on a child's hope. You cannot put a price on a community that learns to include instead of exclude. You cannot put a price on the lesson that every student in this school is learning right now, the lesson that different doesn't mean less. He turned to face the entire auditorium. I am not asking you to keep this program because of my money. I am asking you to keep it because it is the right thing to do, because this is what education is supposed to be, not just facts and figures and test scores, but humanity, compassion, The courage to do hard things because they matter. He sat down. The room was silent. Then Oliver stood up. He walked to the front of the auditorium, his small shoes echoing on the hardwood floor. Grace tried to stop him, but Marcus held her back. Let him speak. Oliver reached the microphone. It was too tall for him, so Headmaster Crawford lowered it. My name is Oliver Wellington. I'm in 2nd grade, and Noah Chen is my best friend. His voice was small but steady. Before I met Noah, I was really lonely. My mom died when I was 4, and my dad was always working, and I didn't have anyone to talk to. I felt invisible, like nobody could see me, like I was trapped inside my own head with no way out. Marcus's throat tightened. Then I saw Noah, and I knew exactly how he felt, because we were the same. Both of us lonely, both of us invisible, both of us waiting for someone to notice. Oliver looked at Victoria Ashford. You said Noah doesn't belong here. But belonging isn't about hearing or talking or being like everyone else. Belonging is about people who care about you, people who see you, people who choose you even when it's hard. He looked at his father, at Grace, at the 17 children from his sign language club who had all come to support their friend. Noah belongs here because we chose him, because we see him, because he's one of us. Oliver turned back to the audience. And if you kick him out, you're not just kicking out one kid. You're telling all of us that different is wrong, that being yourself isn't good enough, that the only people who matter are the people who fit in. His voice cracked. But my mom used to say that the people who change the world are the ones who don't fit in, the ones who see things differently, the ones who have the courage to be themselves even when everyone else wants them to be something else. Tears streamed down his face. Noah is going to change the world someday. I know it. And when he does, I hope you remember this night. I hope you remember that you almost threw him away. Oliver walked back to his seat. Grace pulled him into her arms, sobbing. Marcus put his hand on his son's shoulder and felt something break open in his chest. Pride. Love. The kind of fierce protective devotion that he had thought died with Elizabeth. The room was completely silent. Then Mrs. Chen stood up. Her voice shook, but she spoke anyway. My son has been to 5 schools. 5. And every single one of them said the same thing. We're not equipped. He needs specialized care. We have to think of the other students. And every single time I watched my son's heart break a little more. She wiped her eyes. But this school is different. These people are different. For the first time in Noah's life, he has friends. He has teachers who try. He has a community that sees him as a child, not a problem. And you want to take that away because it costs too much. Because it's inconvenient. Because it doesn't fit your image of what a perfect school should look like. Her voice hardened. Shame on you, shame on all of you who would throw away a child because he's different. Because my son is not a liability. He's not a burden. He's a gift. And any school that can't see that doesn't deserve to call itself a place of learning. She sat down. The room erupted. Parents shouted. Teachers argued. Victoria Ashford banged her gavel trying to restore order. But the tide had turned. Marcus could feel it. When the vote finally came, it wasn't even close. 6-1. The program would continue. Victoria Ashford gathered her papers and walked out without a word. Patricia Harrington followed, her face twisted with fury. Marcus didn't watch them go. He was too busy hugging his son, too busy watching Grace cry tears of joy, too busy feeling something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope, real hope. The kind that doesn't come from money or success or winning. The kind that comes from doing something that matters, from standing up for something bigger than yourself, from discovering that even in the darkest times, there is still light. Outside the auditorium, the night air was cool and clean. Marcus stood with Grace and Oliver and Mrs. Chen and Noah, all of them exhausted and elated and completely overwhelmed. What happens now? Mrs. Chen asked. Now we keep going, Grace said. We build on what we've started. We make this program so strong that no one can ever threaten it again. And we celebrate, Marcus added. Because tonight, we won. And that matters. Oliver tugged on his father's sleeve. Dad. Yeah, buddy. I'm really glad you came home early that day. Marcus looked at his son, at this brave, brilliant, beautiful child who had seen what an entire world had missed. Me too, Oliver. His voice cracked. Me too. Noah signed something. Oliver laughed and translated. He says he's glad too, and he wants to know if we can get ice cream. Marcus looked at Grace. She was smiling, her face luminous in the parking lot lights. I think ice cream sounds perfect, she said. And so, at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, a billionaire, a former housekeeper, 2 little boys and an exhausted nurse walked into an ice cream shop on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. They ordered too many flavors and made too much noise and probably annoyed every other customer in the place. But they didn't care, because they were family, and that was all that mattered. 3 months after the board meeting, the ice cream celebration felt like a lifetime ago. Marcus sat in his home office at 6 in the morning, staring at his laptop screen, trying to process the email that had just arrived. It was from Victoria Ashford's lawyer. Mr. Wellington, please be advised that my client, Mrs. Victoria Ashford, intends to file a formal complaint with the New York State Department of Education regarding the deaf education program at Whitmore Academy. Mrs. Ashford alleges that the program violates state guidelines for curriculum standards and represents an inappropriate use of private donations to influence educational policy. A formal investigation will be requested within 30 days. Consider this your notice. Marcus read the email 3 times. Each time, his blood ran colder. Victoria Ashford had lost the board vote. She had been humiliated in front of the entire school community, and now she was fighting back with the only weapon she had left, the government. Grace found him still staring at the screen an hour later. What's wrong? She set down a cup of coffee beside him. You look like someone died. Marcus turned the laptop toward her. He watched her face change as she read. The color drained from her cheeks. Her hand went to her throat. Can she do this? She can try. But we haven't done anything wrong. Grace's voice rose. The program follows every guideline. We have certified interpreters. We have documented training. We have... It doesn't matter. Marcus's voice was flat. An investigation will take months, maybe years. It will create uncertainty. Parents will panic. Donors will hesitate. And even if we win, the damage will already be done. Grace sat down heavily in the chair across from him. So what do we do? I don't know. The words hung in the air between them. For 3 months, Marcus had been the one with answers, the one with plans, the one who knew exactly what to do when obstacles appeared. But this was different. This was personal. This was someone willing to burn down everything just to prove a point. We can't tell Oliver. Oliver, Grace said quietly. Not yet. He's been so happy. He and Noah are planning a sign language performance for the spring assembly. If he finds out that someone is trying to destroy everything... He'll find out eventually, Marcus said. Kids always do. Then we have to fix this before he does. Marcus looked at her. At this woman who had walked into his life 3 months ago to clean his house and watch his child. Who had become something so much more than the help. Who had become his partner, his confidant, his friend. Maybe something else too. Something he wasn't ready to name yet. I need to make some calls, he said. I know people in Albany, people who owe me favors. Maybe I can get ahead of this before the complaint is even filed. And if you can't, then we fight. Marcus stood. The same way we've been fighting all along. We don't give up, we don't back down, and we don't let Victoria Ashford win. Grace nodded slowly. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and took his hand. Whatever happens, we do this together. You're not alone anymore, Marcus. You understand that, right? You don't have to carry everything by yourself. Marcus looked at their joined hands, at her fingers intertwined with his, at the warmth spreading through his chest. I'm starting to, he said softly. I'm starting to understand a lot of things. 2 weeks later, the investigation request had been filed. Marcus's contacts in Albany had done what they could, but Victoria Ashford had connections too. Older connections, deeper connections. The kind that came from generations of wealth and power and knowing exactly which strings to pull. The news had leaked. Parents were calling the school. Reporters were asking questions. Social media was exploding with opinions from people who had never met Noah Chen and never would. And in the middle of it all, Oliver came home from school with a black eye. Grace was the first to see him. She was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard the front door open. She turned with a smile that died the moment she saw his face. Oliver, what happened? The boy said nothing. He walked past her, his backpack dragging on the floor. His shoulders hunched forward in that way that meant he was trying not to cry. Oliver, stop. Look at me. He stopped. He didn't turn around. Grace crossed the kitchen and knelt in front of him. The black eye was already swelling purple and angry against his pale skin. There was a cut on his lip too, and dried blood on his collar. Who did this to you? Oliver shook his head. Oliver Wellington, you tell me right now who... It doesn't matter. His voice was barely a whisper. They said Noah should go back where he belongs. They said my dad is ruining the school. They said... His voice broke. They said my mom would be ashamed of me. Grace felt something inside her snap, a rage so fierce it took her breath away. Who said that? Tommy Rodriguez and Jake Henderson and some fifth graders I don't know. Tommy Rodriguez, Grace's voice sharpened. His mother is Patricia Harrington's best friend. I know. Oliver finally looked up. His eyes were red and swollen. That's why they did it, because their moms are angry and they want everyone else to be angry too. Grace pulled him into her arms, held him tight while he cried. Felt his small body shake with sobs that were too big for a 7-year-old to hold. That was how Marcus found them when he walked in an hour later. His son in Grace's arms. Blood on his shirt, a black eye blooming like a dark flower. What the hell happened? His voice came out louder than he intended. Oliver flinched. Grace looked up with tears streaming down her face. Some boys at school, she said. They beat him up because of the program, because of Noah, because of us. Marcus felt the world tilt beneath his feet. He had spent 3 months fighting board members and lawyers and bureaucrats. He had written checks and made speeches and believed that money and determination could solve anything. But he couldn't protect his son from other children. He couldn't shield Oliver from the hatred that adults had planted in young hearts. He couldn't fix this with a phone call or a donation or a carefully worded statement. He knelt beside his son. Oliver, look at me. The boy raised his head. His face was a mess of tears and blood and bruises, but his eyes were steady, fierce, unbroken. Did you fight back? Oliver nodded. Did you win? I don't know. Oliver's voice cracked. There were 4 of them. I got one really good punch in before they knocked me down, but I didn't stop fighting. Even when they were kicking me. Even when it hurt. I didn't stop. Marcus's throat tightened. Why? Because you said we don't give up. Oliver wiped his nose with his sleeve. You said we don't back down. You said we don't let the bad guys win. Oh, buddy. Marcus pulled his son into his arms. Held him so tight he could feel Oliver's heart beating against his own. I am so sorry. I am so sorry this happened to you. It's not your fault. Yes, it is. Marcus's voice broke. I started this. I made enemies. I put a target on our backs. And you're the one paying the price. Oliver pulled back. His small hands cupped his father's face the same way Grace had cupped his face 3 months ago when everything began. Dad, listen to me. His voice was steady, too steady for a 7-year-old. Noah is worth it. Being kind is worth it. Doing the right thing is worth it, even when it hurts, even when people are mean, even when it feels like the whole world is against you. Marcus stared at his son, at this tiny warrior who had more courage than grown men 3 times his age. When did you get so smart? Mom taught me. Oliver's eyes filled with fresh tears. She used to say that the measure of a person isn't how they act when things are easy, it's how they act when things are hard. And things are really hard right now, Dad, but that just means we have to try harder. Marcus looked at Grace. She was crying openly now, making no effort to hide her tears. He's right, she whispered. He's absolutely right. Marcus stood up slowly. He felt something shift inside him, something that had been uncertain becoming written, something that had been wavering becoming solid. Okay, he said. We try harder. But first, we're going to make sure those boys never touch you again. How? Leave that to me. The next morning, Marcus walked into Headmaster Crawford's office with Oliver beside him. The boy's black eye had darkened overnight purple and yellow, spreading across half his face. The cut on his lip had scabbed over. He looked like a prize fighter after a losing match. Crawford's face went pale when he saw them. Mr. Wellington, I heard about what happened. I want to assure you that Whitmore Academy takes bullying very seriously and does it... Marcus's voice was ice. Because my son was beaten by 4 students yesterday. 4. And from what I understand, those students have been making threats for weeks. Weeks, Headmaster. And nobody did anything about it. Crawford shifted uncomfortably. We were monitoring the situation. Monitoring. Marcus stepped closer to the desk. My son has a black eye. A split lip, bruises on his ribs. Is that what monitoring looks like at Whitmore Academy? Mr. Wellington, I understand you're upset. Upset doesn't begin to cover it. Marcus placed both hands on Crawford's desk and leaned forward. Those boys are going to be expelled. All 4 of them. Today. Crawford's eyes widened. I can't just expel students without a proper investigation. Then start the investigation right now. Interview witnesses, Review security footage, do whatever you need to do, but by the end of the day, those boys are gone. One of them is Patricia Harrington's son, Crawford said quietly. I don't care if one of them is the president's son. Marcus's voice rose. They beat up a 7-year-old because his father dared to help a deaf child. They told him his dead mother would be ashamed of him. That's not bullying, headmaster. That's assault. And if you don't handle it, I will. Crawford swallowed hard. What does that mean? It means I will file charges. It means I will go to the media. It means I will make sure every parent in this school knows exactly what kind of behavior Whitmore Academy tolerates. Marcus straightened. Your choice. The silence stretched. Crawford looked at Oliver's battered face, at the determination in Marcus's eyes, at the door where Grace was waiting with her arms crossed. I'll convene the disciplinary committee this afternoon, Crawford said finally. The students involved will be suspended pending investigation. If the evidence supports expulsion, that will be the recommendation. See that it does. Marcus turned and walked out Oliver's hand in his. Grace fell into step beside them. Do you think it will work? She whispered. It has to, Marcus said. Because if it doesn't, I'm pulling Oliver out of this school and taking down everyone responsible on my way out. Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that stopped Marcus in his tracks. There's something else you should know. What? I got a call this morning from the Department of Education. They want to interview me as part of the investigation. Marcus turned to face her. Tomorrow. What are they asking about? Everything. Grace's face was pale. My qualifications, my relationship with you, my role in the program. They want to know if I'm really qualified or if I'm just... She stopped. Just what? Just the help who got lucky because the rich man wanted to feel good about himself. The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. That's not what you are. I know that. You know that. But they don't. Grace's voice cracked. Victoria Ashford is painting a picture, Marcus. A picture of a wealthy man who got manipulated by his housekeeper into wasting millions of dollars on a doomed project. And if the investigation believes that picture, they won't. How do you know him? Because it's not true. Since when does truth matter? Grace's eyes filled with tears. You have money and power and connections. I have a master's degree nobody respects and a resume full of jobs that rich people think are beneath them. If it comes down to your word against Victoria Ashford's, you might win. But if it comes down to my word against hers... She shook her head. I'm just the help, Marcus. I'm always just the help. Marcus reached out and cupped her face in his hands. The same way Oliver had done to him last night. The same way Grace had done to Oliver 3 months ago. Listen to me. His voice was fierce. You are not just the help. You are not just anything. You are brilliant and compassionate and stronger than anyone I've ever known. You walked into my broken home and you fixed everything. Not with my money, not with connections, with love, with patience, with a heart that refuses to give up on anyone. Grace's tears spilled over. I feel it. And if Victoria Ashford thinks she can take you down, she's going to learn what happens when she goes up against the woman who changed my son's life, who changed my life, who changed everything. Grace stared at him. You really believe that? I believe it more than I've believed anything in 3 years. Grace let out a shaky breath. Then she did something that surprised them both. She leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft, brief, barely more than a whisper of contact. But it sent electricity through Marcus's entire body, made his heart pound, made the world stop spinning for just a moment. Dad? Oliver's voice cut through the moment. Are you kissing Grace? They sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents. Grace's face flushed crimson. Marcus cleared his throat. Oliver grinned. The first real smile Marcus had seen since yesterday. It's about time, the boy said. I've been waiting for you to figure that out for months. Grace laughed. A real laugh full of joy and relief, and something that sounded like hope. You're too smart for your own good, Oliver Wellington. I know. Oliver took both their hands. Now can we please go get breakfast? Getting beaten up makes me really hungry. Marcus looked at Grace. She looked back at him. And something passed between them that didn't need words. We're in this together. All of it. No matter what comes next. 1 week later, the disciplinary committee had ruled. All 4 boys were expelled. Patricia Harrington had threatened lawsuits, media exposure, social destruction. Crawford had held firm. For the first time in his career, he had chosen the right side. But the Department of Education investigation was just beginning. Grace's interview had lasted 4 hours. They had questioned everything: her degree, her experience, her relationship with Marcus, her motives for taking the job in the first place. They had treated her like a suspect instead of a witness. She had come home exhausted and silent and hadn't spoken for the rest of the night. Marcus found her in the small room off the kitchen, the room that had been her quarters when she was just the help. She never slept there anymore, but sometimes she went there when she needed to think. "Hey." He knocked softly on the open door. "Can I come in?" She nodded without looking up. He sat beside her on the narrow bed, took her hand, waited. "They asked me if I was sleeping with you." Her voice was flat. "They asked if that was why you gave me the program director position. They asked if our relationship influenced your donation." Marcus's jaw tightened. "What did you tell them?" "The truth, that we weren't sleeping together when you made the donation, that our relationship developed afterward, that my qualifications speak for themselves." "Did they believe you?" "I don't know." Grace finally looked at him. Her eyes were red, exhausted. "They kept looking at me like I was lying, like everything I've accomplished must have some other explanation because I'm just... Don't." Marcus's voice was sharp. "Don't say it. Don't even think it." "Why not?" "It's what they're thinking. It's what Victoria Ashford wants everyone to think, that I'm a gold digger, an opportunist, someone who saw a lonely rich man and figured out how to profit from his grief." "Anyone who knows you knows that's not true." "But they don't know me." Grace's voice broke. "The investigators don't know me, the media doesn't know me, the court of public opinion doesn't know me. All they know is the story Victoria Ashford is telling. And it's a good story, Marcus. Rich man, beautiful housekeeper, millions of dollars. It practically writes itself." Marcus pulled her close, held her while she cried. "I'm going to fix this," he said into her hair. "I don't know how yet, but I'm going to fix it." "What if you can't? What if they shut down the program? What if Noah has to leave? What if everything we've built just..." She couldn't finish. "Then we start over," Marcus said. "We find another school, another way, another chance, because that's what we do. That's who we are. We don't give up." Grace pulled back, wiped her eyes. "You sound like Oliver." "He's the smartest person I know," Marcus smiled. "Gets it from his mother." Grace laughed despite herself. "You really loved her, didn't you, Elizabeth?" "More than anything," Marcus's voice softened. "Until I loved you." Grace went still. "What did you say, Fa?" "I love you." The words came out easily, naturally, like they had been waiting to be said for months. "I love how you see the world. I love how you fight for what's right. I love how you taught my son to believe in himself. I love how you taught me to believe in myself again." Grace's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Marcus?" "You don't have to say it back. I know it's complicated. I know we're in the middle of a war. I know the timing is terrible, but I needed you to know. Whatever happens next, whatever the investigation decides, whatever Victoria Ashford throws at us, I needed you to know that you are loved. Completely, unconditionally, forever." Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached up and touched his face. "I love you too," she whispered. "I've loved you since the night you sat in this room and apologized for how you treated me, since you showed me that you were capable of change, since I realized that underneath all that grief and anger and fear, there was a good man trying to find his way back to the light." She kissed him, not soft this time, not brief, a real kiss. The kind that made promises, the kind that meant forever. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying. "Well then," Marcus said, "I guess we better win this fight." "I guess we better." 3 days later. Marcus was in his office at Wellington Capital when his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Wellington, this is James Chen." Marcus frowned. "I'm sorry, who..." "James Chen, Noah's father." The words hit Marcus like a thunderbolt. Noah's father. In all the months since this began, no one had ever mentioned Noah's father. Marcus had assumed he was out of the picture. Gone. Irrelevant. "Mr. Chen, what can I do for you?" "I think the question is what I can do for you." The voice was smooth, confident, the voice of someone used to being in control. "I understand you've been helping my son, financing his education, fighting for his right to attend that school. That's correct. I also understand that you're currently under investigation, that the program you created might be shut down, that everything you've built could collapse at any moment. Marcus's grip tightened on the phone. Where are you getting your information? I have sources. James Chen chuckled. The point is, Mr. Wellington, I think we can help each other. How? I'm a lawyer, a very good lawyer. I specialize in educational law and nonprofit compliance, and I happen to know exactly how to make this investigation go away. Marcus's heart pounded. What do you want in return? Silence. Then I want to see my son. Have you talked to his mother about this? His mother doesn't want me in his life. She's made that very clear over the years, but Noah is my son too, and I have rights. Rights you've never exercised before. I had my reasons. James Chen's voice hardened. Reasons I don't need to explain to you. The point is, I'm offering you a deal. I make your legal problems disappear. You convince Rachel to let me back into Noah's life. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. That's not my decision to make. But you have influence. She trusts you. She'll listen to you. I won't manipulate her. Then call it persuasion. James Chen's voice was silky smooth. Look, Wellington, we both want what's best for Noah. I'm his father. You're his benefactor. Together we can give him everything he needs. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Let me think about it. Don't think too long. The investigation moves fast. And from what I hear, Grace Johnson's credentials are looking shakier by the day. The line went dead. Marcus sat in his office, the phone still in his hand, his mind racing. James Chen, a lawyer who could solve their problems, a father who wanted back into his son's life, and a deal that felt wrong in ways Marcus couldn't quite articulate. He called Grace. We need to talk, and we need to talk to Rachel Chen. 2 hours later, the three of them sat in Marcus's living room. Oliver was at a play date. Noah was with a babysitter. They were alone. Rachel Chen looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were sunken. Her hands trembled around the cup of tea Grace had made her. He called you. It wasn't a question. Yes, Marcus said. He offered to make the investigation go away if I convince you to let him see Noah. Rachel laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Of course he did. That's James, always looking for leverage, always finding the angle. What happened between you two? Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke. James and I met in law school. He was brilliant, charming. Everyone wanted to be him or be with him. I fell hard. We got married right after graduation, had Noah a year later. Her voice cracked. When we found out Noah was deaf, James acted like it was the end of the world, like our son was defective, like he'd been cheated out of the perfect family he was supposed to have. Grace reached out and took her hand. He threw himself into work, started staying late, started traveling, started finding reasons to be anywhere except home with his deaf son. Rachel wiped her eyes. When Noah was 3, I found out James was having an affair. Multiple affairs, actually. He'd been cheating on me almost from the beginning. I'm so sorry, Grace whispered. I filed for divorce. James didn't fight it. He didn't want custody. He didn't want visitation. He just wanted out. Rachel's voice hardened. For 5 years, he's sent child support checks and nothing else. No phone calls, no birthday cards, no sign that he even remembers he has a son. She looked at Marcus. And now suddenly he wants back in because it's convenient, because he can use Noah to get something he wants. She shook her head. I won't do it. I won't let him hurt my son again. Marcus nodded slowly. I understand, and I won't try to convince you otherwise. But the investigation... We'll find another way, Marcus said. I didn't come this far by making deals with people who abandon their children. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing all this? You don't owe us anything. Noah isn't your responsibility. I'm not your responsibility. Why do you keep fighting? Marcus thought about the question, about everything that had happened since the day he walked in on Grace teaching Oliver sign language, about how much had changed, about how much he had changed. Because my wife taught me that we're all responsible for each other, he said finally. Because my son showed me that one person's kindness can change the world. Because Grace reminded me that love isn't something you feel. It's something you do. He looked at Grace. She was crying silently, her hand still holding Rachel's. And because Noah deserves a community that fights for him, even when it's hard, even when it costs something, even when the easier path would be to walk away. Rachel Chen stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She started to laugh. You know what the crazy thing is, she said between gasps of laughter and tears. When I first heard about you, I thought you were just another rich guy looking for a tax write-off. Another privileged man who wanted to feel good about himself without actually doing anything. She wiped her eye. But you're not, are you? You actually care. You actually believe. You actually... She couldn't finish. He does, Grace said softly. He really does. Rachel nodded, took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders. Then let's figure out how to beat this thing, without James, without compromising, without selling our souls for convenience. Marcus smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The next morning, Marcus made a decision that changed everything. He called a press conference. Reporters filled the lobby of Wellington Capitol. Cameras flashed. Microphones jutted forward like weapons. Questions flew from every direction. Marcus stood at the podium, Grace on one side, Rachel Chen on the other. Behind them stood Oliver and Noah holding hands, their faces determined. Thank you all for coming, Marcus began. I'm here to address the ongoing investigation into the deaf education program at Whitmore Academy, and I'm here to tell the truth. He took a deep breath. 3 months ago, I came home early from a business trip. I walked into my house and saw my housekeeper with her hands on my son's face. I assumed the worst. I accused her of harming my child. I fired her on the spot. The room went silent. I was wrong. What I saw that day wasn't abuse. It was education. Grace Johnson was teaching my son sign language so he could communicate with a deaf classmate named Noah Chen, a boy who had been ignored, excluded, thrown away by 5 different schools. Marcus looked at Noah. The boy was watching him with wide eyes. I almost destroyed something beautiful because I was too blind to see it, too quick to judge, too wrapped up in my own grief and fear to recognize love when it was standing right in front of me. He turned back to the cameras. The investigation currently underway is not about protecting children. It's about punishing compassion. It's about tearing down a program that works because some people would rather throw away children who are different than invest the effort to include them. His voice rose. Victoria Ashford and her allies want you to believe that this program is wasteful, inappropriate, harmful, but I invite any of you to visit Whitmore Academy, to see the children who have learned sign language, to meet the teachers who have expanded their skills, to watch Noah Chen laugh with his friends instead of cry in corners. He gestured to the boys behind him. These children are the future, and they're watching us right now. They're watching to see whether we choose inclusion or exclusion, compassion or convenience, love or fear. Marcus leaned into the microphone. I know which side I'm on, and I hope you do too. The questions exploded. Reporters shouted over each other. Cameras flashed like lightning. But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. He was looking at Grace, who was crying and smiling at the same time. At Oliver, who was signing something to Noah. At Rachel Chen, who was holding her son like she would never let him go. They hadn't won yet. But they hadn't lost either. And sometimes Marcus realized that was enough. Sometimes courage wasn't about winning. It was about standing up, speaking out, refusing to be silent in the face of injustice. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As a family. The press conference changed everything. Within 24 hours, the video had been viewed over 2 million times. News outlets across the country picked up the story. Hashtags like Save Noah Chen and Inclusion Matters trended on social media. Parents of deaf children from all 50 states sent messages of support. Celebrities posted videos of themselves learning sign language. Marcus had hoped for attention. He had not expected a movement. But Victoria Ashford was not finished. 3 days after the press conference, Marcus received a hand-delivered envelope at his office. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 2 words typed in the center. Check your wife. He stared at those 3 words until his eyes burned. Then he called his lawyer. I need you to find out what Victoria Ashford knows about Elizabeth. Your late wife. What could she possibly know? I don't know. Marcus's voice was tight. But I intend to find out before she uses it against me. The investigation came 48 hours later. Marcus sat in his lawyer's office staring at a stack of documents that threatened to destroy everything he had built. She was thorough. Robert Chen, no relation to Noah's family, was one of the best attorneys in New York. His face was grim. Victoria Ashford has been digging for months. She found everything. Everything meaning what? Robert slid the top document across the desk. Marcus looked at it and felt his blood turn to ice. It was a medical record. Elizabeth's medical record. From a psychiatric facility in Connecticut. I don't understand. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. Elizabeth was never in a psychiatric facility. She had cancer. That's what killed her. This was before the cancer, Robert said carefully. 22 years ago, before you met her. Marcus read the document. The words blurred together, but certain phrases jumped out. Severe depression, suicide attempt, involuntary commitment, 3 months of inpatient treatment. This can't be right. It's right. Robert's voice was gentle. Victoria Ashford obtained these records through channels I don't want to know about. The point is, she has them, and she's threatening to release them unless you withdraw your support for the program. How does Elizabeth's past have anything to do with the deaf education program? It doesn't. Robert leaned forward. But it has everything to do with you. Victoria is painting a picture, Marcus. A picture of a man with a pattern of poor judgment. A man who married a mentally ill woman. A man who hired an unqualified housekeeper and gave her millions of dollars. A man who can't be trusted to make decisions about children's education. Marcus felt the room spin. Elizabeth wasn't mentally ill. She was the strongest person I ever knew. I believe you, but the public won't see it that way. They'll see a dead woman who tried to kill herself. They'll see scandal. They'll see weakness. This is blackmail. It's worse than blackmail, Robert said. It's character assassination, and if Victoria releases these records, it won't just hurt you. It will hurt Grace. It will hurt the program. It will hurt every child who benefits from what you've built. Marcus was silent for a long moment. He thought about Elizabeth, about the woman who had taught him how to love, about the battles she had fought that he never knew about. Did she know? He asked quietly. Did Elizabeth know that these records existed? I can't answer that. Did she know that someone might use them against me someday? Robert hesitated. There's something else you should see. He pulled out another document, a letter, handwritten. The paper was yellowed with age. This was attached to the medical records. It appears Elizabeth wrote it during her treatment. It was never sent. Marcus took the letter. His hands shook as he unfolded it. The handwriting was Elizabeth's. He would recognize it anywhere. The elegant loops, the slight slant to the right, the way she dotted her eyes with tiny circles instead of points. He read, To whoever finds this, my name is Elizabeth Marie Hartwell. I am 19 years old. 3 weeks ago, I tried to take my own life. I swallowed 47 pills because I believed the world would be better without me. I was wrong. I am writing this letter so that someday when I am strong again, I will remember what rock bottom feels like, and I will remember that I climbed out. I will remember that darkness is not forever. I will remember that every person who struggles deserves compassion, not judgment. If you are reading this and you are struggling too, please know that you are not alone. Please know that the pain you feel today will not last forever. Please know that somewhere in the world there is a person who will love you exactly as you are. I haven't met that person yet, but I believe they exist, and I'm going to live long enough to find them. Marcus's tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ancient ink. She was 19. His voice broke. She was just a kid. She survived, Robert said gently. She went on to live a beautiful life. She met you. She had Oliver. She made a difference in the world. And now Victoria Ashford wants to use her pain as a weapon. Yes. Marcus carefully folded the letter. He placed it in his pocket close to his heart. What are my options? You can give in. Withdraw your support. Let the program collapse. Robert paused. Or you can fight. Go public before Victoria does. Control the narrative. Tell Elizabeth's story your way. And destroy her memory in the process. Let everyone know that my wife tried to kill herself. Or let everyone know that she overcame something impossible and became someone extraordinary. Robert leaned forward. Victoria Ashford thinks this information will shame you, but what if it doesn't? What if it inspires people instead? Marcus thought about Oliver, about how proud his son was of his mother, about the stories Marcus told him every night about how wonderful Elizabeth was. Could he tell Oliver this story too? Could he add another chapter to the legend of Elizabeth Wellington? Not the chapter about her success or her beauty or her grace, but the chapter about her darkness, her struggle, her triumph over the demons that tried to destroy her. I need to talk to Grace. Marcus stood. And then I need to talk to my son. Grace was waiting for him when he got home. She knew something was wrong the moment she saw his face. What happened? Marcus told her everything. The medical records, the letter, Victoria Ashford's ultimatum. Grace listened in silence. When he finished, she was crying. Elizabeth wrote that letter when she was 19. Grace whispered. She wrote it so she would remember what it felt like to survive. Yes. And now someone wants to use her survival against you. Yes. Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised him. "Tell the world." "What?" "Tell them." Grace's voice was fierce. "Tell them about Elizabeth's struggle. Tell them about her strength. Tell them that the woman you loved was human, that she had demons, that she fought them and won." "But Oliver needs to know too." Grace took his hands. "He needs to know that his mother wasn't perfect, that she struggled, that she came back from something terrible and built something beautiful, because someday Marcus Oliver might struggle too, and when he does, he needs to know that it's not the end, that his mother survived, that survival is possible." Marcus stared at her. "You really think we should go public?" "I think Victoria Ashford is betting that you'll be ashamed, that you'll hide, that you'll protect Elizabeth's memory by letting her use it as a weapon." Grace's eyes burned with conviction. "Prove her wrong? Take the weapon out of her hands. Turn Elizabeth's story into a message of hope instead of a secret to be ashamed of. And if people judge us, if they look at Elizabeth differently, then they're not people worth caring about." Grace cupped his face in her hands. "The people who matter will see the truth. They'll see a woman who fought for her life and won. They'll see a man who loved her anyway. They'll see a son who can be proud of both his parents." Marcus closed his eye, felt Grace's hands on his face, felt the weight of the letter in his pocket. Elizabeth had written those words believing that someday someone would love her exactly as she was, and someone had. He had. "Okay," he said. "We tell the truth, all of it." That night, Marcus sat on the edge of Oliver's bed. The boy was in his pajamas, his stuffed dinosaur tucked under one arm, his eyes heavy with sleep. "Daddy, is something wrong? I need to tell you something about your mother." Marcus's voice was steady, but his heart was racing. "Something important." Oliver sat up. "What about her?" Marcus took a deep breath. "When your mother was young, before I met her, she got very sad. So sad that she didn't want to be alive anymore." Oliver's eyes went wide. "She wanted to die." "Yes, but she didn't. She got help. She fought her way back, and she became the wonderful woman you remember." Oliver was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because some bad people want to tell everyone about it. They want to make it seem like your mother was weak, like there was something wrong with her, like she should be ashamed." "But that's not true." "No, it's not." Marcus took his son's hands. "Your mother was the strongest person I ever knew. Not because she never struggled, but because she did struggle and she won. She beat the darkness, she found the light, and she spent the rest of her life helping other people find their light too." Oliver's eyes filled with tears. "I miss her." "I miss her too, buddy, every single day." "Do you think she would be proud of me for helping Noah?" Marcus pulled his son into his arms. "I think she would be prouder of you than she's ever been of anything. I think she's watching us right now, smiling because her son turned out to be exactly the kind of person she hoped he would be." Oliver buried his face in his father's chest. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Oliver, more than anything in the world." The next morning, Marcus called another press conference. This time, there were even more cameras, even more reporters, even more eyes watching. Marcus stood at the podium, Elizabeth's letter in his hand. "Yesterday, I received a threat," he began. "Someone obtained private medical records about my late wife. Records that reveal something she struggled with before I ever met her. Something she never told me about." The room went silent. When Elizabeth was 19 years old, she tried to take her own life. Marcus's voice cracked, but he kept going. She was hospitalized. She received treatment, and she wrote a letter to herself promising to remember what rock bottom felt like so she could help others who might find themselves there. He held up the letter. "The person who obtained these records thought they could use them to shame me, to shame Elizabeth, to make us look weak, to force me to abandon the children I've been fighting for." His voice hardened. "They were wrong." Marcus looked directly into the cameras. "My wife was not weak. She was stronger than anyone I've ever known, because she stared into the darkness and chose to live. She chose to fight. She chose to become someone who made the world better instead of letting the world destroy her." Tears streamed down his face, but he didn't wipe them away. "And I am proud of her. Not despite what she went through, but because of it. Because her struggle made her compassionate. Her pain made her kind. Her darkness made her treasure the light." He stepped back from the podium. "Victoria Ashford thought this information would destroy me. Instead, it reminded me why I'm fighting in the first place. Because every person who struggles deserves compassion, not judgment. Because every child who is different deserves inclusion, not exclusion. Because my wife believed in a world where people lift each other up instead of tearing each other down." He folded the letter carefully. "Elizabeth didn't live to see what we've built at Whitmore Academy, but I know she would have been proud. I know she would have fought alongside us, and I know that wherever she is right now, she's cheering us on." He looked at Grace, who was standing in the crowd with tears streaming down her face. "We don't stop. We don't give up. We don't let the darkness win." He walked away from the podium. The questions exploded behind him, but he didn't answer any of them. He had said everything that needed to be said. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, the video had gone viral again. But this time, the conversation wasn't just about deaf education. It was about mental health, about survival, about the courage it takes to keep living when everything inside you wants to give up. People shared their own stories. Parents who had lost children to suicide, survivors who had fought their way back from the edge, families who had watched loved ones struggle and had never known how to talk about it. Elizabeth's letter was printed in newspapers. It was read aloud on television. It was shared millions of times on social media. And Victoria Ashford's weapon turned to ash in her hands. 3 days after the press conference, Marcus received a phone call from the Department of Education. "Mr. Wellington, this is Director Sarah Mitchell. I'm calling to inform you that our investigation into the Whitmore Academy Deaf Education Program has concluded." Marcus held his breath. "And we found no evidence of impropriety. The program meets all state guidelines. Ms. Johnson's credentials are exemplary. Your donation was handled in full compliance with nonprofit regulations." Marcus exhaled slowly. "The investigation is closed." "The investigation is closed. Furthermore, we will be recommending that the state use your program as a model for other schools seeking to improve services for deaf and hard-of-hearing students." "A model, huh? You've built something special, Mr. Wellington." Director Mitchell's voice warmed. "Don't let anyone take that away from you." Marcus hung up and immediately called Grace. "It's over." His voice shook. "We won." Grace screamed so loud he had to pull the phone away from his ear. Then she was laughing and crying at the same time. "We won really. Really. The investigation is closed. They're recommending our program as a state model." Oh my God, Marcus, we did it. We did it." He felt tears streaming down his own face. "We actually did it." That evening they celebrated. Marcus and Grace, Oliver and Noah, Rachel Chen. Even Headmaster Crawford showed up looking more relaxed than Marcus had ever seen him. They ordered too much pizza. They ate too much ice cream. Oliver and Noah performed the sign language routine they had been practicing for weeks, complete with a dramatic finale that involved both boys collapsing on the floor in fake exhaustion. Marcus watched them all laughing and crying and hugging each other, and he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Complete. "You okay?" Grace appeared beside him, a slice of pizza in one hand, a glass of wine in the other. "Better than okay." He pulled her close. "I'm perfect." "Nobody's perfect." "Then I'm as close as I've ever been." He kissed her forehead. "Thank you for everything, for not giving up on Oliver, for not giving up on me." "Thank you for seeing me," Grace whispered. "For really seeing me. Not as the help, not as a convenient solution, as a person. The best person I know." They kissed. Somewhere behind them, Oliver made a gagging sound that made Noah laugh so hard he fell off the couch. "Get a room, quick!" Oliver yelled. "This is my room," Marcus yelled back. "My house, my rules." "Your rules are gross," Grace laughed against Marcus's lips. "He has a point." "Whose side are you on?" "Always his," she grinned. "He's cuter than you." The celebration continued until well past midnight. Eventually, Oliver and Noah fell asleep on the couch, curled together like puppies. Rachel Chen covered them with a blanket and kissed her son's forehead. "I should get him home," she whispered, "but I don't want to wake him." "Let him stay, Huck," Marcus said. "We have plenty of room. You can stay too if you want." Rachel looked at him with tears in her eye. "You've done so much for us already." "That's what family does." The word hung in the air. Family. Rachel Chen nodded slowly, wiping her eye. "Family," she repeated. "I like the sound of that." 2 weeks later, the school year was almost over. The sign language program had been featured in Time magazine. Grace had been invited to speak at a national education conference. Oliver had been named Whitmore Academy's youngest ever student ambassador, and Noah Chen had made honor roll. Marcus stood in the audience at the end-of-year assembly watching his son walk across the stage to accept an award for community service. Grace stood beside him, her hand in his. Rachel Chen stood on his other side, tears streaming down her face. For exceptional kindness, compassion, and leadership in promoting inclusion and understanding among his peers, this year's Community Hero Award goes to Oliver Wellington. Oliver accepted the plaque. He looked out at the audience, found his father's face, and grinned. Then he did something that made Marcus's heart stop. He stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you for this award, but I can't accept it alone." He waved Noah onto the stage. The other boy came hesitantly, his eyes wide. "This award should be for both of us," Oliver said, "because I didn't do anything special. I just saw someone who needed a friend and I decided to be one. That's not heroic. That's just being human." He looked at Noah. Noah is the real hero. He's been to 6 schools. He's been thrown away over and over, but he never stopped hoping. He never stopped trying. He never stopped believing that somewhere out there someone would see him. Oliver signed as he spoke, his small hands moving with practiced grace. "I want everyone in this room to know something. Being different isn't wrong. It's not scary. It's not something to fix or hide or be ashamed of. Being different is just being yourself, and everyone deserves to be themselves." He held up the plaque. "This award is for every kid who's ever felt invisible. Every kid who's ever been told they don't belong. Every kid who's ever wondered if anyone would ever really see them." He looked at Noah and signed the words as he said them. "You are seen. You are loved. You belong." The auditorium exploded in applause. Standing ovation, parents crying, teachers crying. Even Headmaster Crawford was wiping his eyes. Marcus held Grace tight and watched his son share his moment of triumph with his best friend. This was what Elizabeth had wanted. This was the world she had dreamed of. A world where people saw each other, where they lifted each other up, where being different was celebrated instead of punished. She hadn't lived to see it, but her son was making it real. After the assembly, Marcus found Oliver in the hallway, still clutching the plaque, surrounded by classmates who wanted to congratulate him. "Can I borrow my son for a minute?" Marcus asked. The crowd parted. Oliver looked up at his father. "Did I do okay?" Marcus knelt down to Oliver's level. "You did more than okay. You did something your mother would have been incredibly proud of." "You think so? I know so." Marcus touched Oliver's face. "She used to say that the measure of a person isn't how they act when things are easy. It's how they act when things are hard. And buddy, you have faced hard things this year. You've been beaten up. You've been threatened. You've been tested in ways no 7-year-old should ever be tested." Oliver nodded solemnly. "And through all of it, you never stopped being kind. You never stopped fighting for what was right. You never stopped believing that people could be better." Marcus pulled his son into a tight hug. "I am so proud of you, Oliver. Not because of the award, not because of the attention, because of who you are, because of the heart that beats inside your chest." Oliver hugged him back. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, buddy, to the moon and back, and around all the stars, and around all the stars." It was something Elizabeth used to say, a phrase from a bedtime story she used to read. Marcus hadn't thought about it in years, but Oliver remembered, and in that moment Marcus realized something. Elizabeth wasn't gone. Not really. She lived on in Oliver's kindness, in his courage, in his determination to make the world better. She lived on in every child who learned sign language at Whitmore Academy, in every deaf student who would come after Noah, in every family that would be touched by the program they had built. Elizabeth's light hadn't gone out when she died. It had just changed form, and now it burned brighter than ever. That night, Marcus sat in his study with Grace. The house was quiet. Oliver was asleep. The city glittered outside the windows. "It's really over," Grace said softly. "The investigation, the threats, Victoria Ashford." "It's over," Marcus agreed, "but it's also just beginning." "What do you mean?" "The program at Whitmore is just one school. There are thousands of deaf children across this country who don't have what Noah has, who don't have interpreters or trained teachers or classmates who know sign language." Grace looked at him. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about the Grace Johnson Foundation." "The what?" "A foundation. In your name. To bring deaf education programs to schools across America, to train teachers, to hire interpreters, to give every Noah Chen in every school the chance that our Noah got." Grace stared at him. "Marcus, that would cost millions. I know." He smiled. Good thing I have millions. But why my name? Because you're the one who made this possible. Marcus took her hands. You're the one who saw Oliver when I couldn't, who saw Noah when everyone else looked away, who taught me that love isn't something you feel, it's something you do. Grace's eyes filled with tears. You changed my life, Grace. You changed Oliver's life. You changed Noah's life. Marcus pulled her close. Now let's change the world. Grace laughed through her tears. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything. She was quiet for a long moment, then she nodded. Okay, let's change the world. Marcus kissed her, deep and long and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, Grace was smiling. So what now? We start planning building fundraising. Eventually, Marcus stood and held out his hand. But first, there's something I need to do. What? Come with me. He led her out of the study down the hallway to the front door of the penthouse. Where are we going? You'll see. They took the elevator down to the lobby, walked out into the cool night air. Marcus hailed a taxi. Central Park, he told the driver. The Bethesda Fountain. Grace looked at him quizzically but didn't ask questions. 20 minutes later, they stood at the edge of the fountain. The water glittered in the moonlight. The city hummed around them, but here in this pocket of peace, the world felt very far away. Elizabeth and I got engaged here, Marcus said quietly. 15 years ago, on a night just like this one. Grace was silent. After she died, I couldn't come back. It hurt too much. Every memory we had together felt like a knife in my heart. He turned to face her. But tonight, I wanted to bring you here, because I wanted to tell you something important. Grace's breath caught. Marcus? I loved Elizabeth with everything I had. I will always love her. She gave me Oliver. She gave me the best years of my life. She taught me what it means to really see another person. He took Grace's hands. But she's gone, and I'm still here, and so are you. Grace's eyes filled with tears. I spent 3 years hiding from life, hiding from love, hiding from anything that might make me feel something again. And then you walked into my house and you refused to let me hide anymore. Marcus reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. Grace gasped. I know it's fast. I know we've only been together for a few months. I know there are 100 reasons why this is crazy. He opened the box. Inside was a simple diamond ring, elegant and beautiful. But I also know that I love you. I know that Oliver loves you. I know that you make our family complete in ways I never thought possible. He got down on one knee. Grace Johnson, will you marry me? Grace was crying openly now. Her hands trembled in his. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 1,000 times, yes. Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger. Then he stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her under the stars, beside the fountain where he had proposed to another woman 15 years ago. But this didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like blessing. Like Elizabeth herself was watching from somewhere smiling, knowing that the man she loved had finally found his way back to the light. I love you, Grace whispered against his lips. I love you too. Marcus held her tight. Forever. And standing there in the moonlight, surrounded by the city that had witnessed all his triumphs and all his failures, Marcus Wellington finally understood what Elizabeth had written in that letter all those years ago. Somewhere in the world there is a person who will love you exactly as you are. Elizabeth had found that person in him, and now miraculously, impossibly beautifully, he had found that person in Grace. The darkness was not forever. The pain would not last. And love, real love, the kind that changes everything, was always worth the wait. 1 year later. The morning of the wedding arrived with unexpected rain. Grace stood at the window of her suite at the Plaza Hotel, watching the drops streak down the glass, wondering if this was an omen. Nervous, Rachel Chen appeared beside her, already dressed in her bridesmaid gown, a cup of tea in her hands. Terrified, Grace admitted. What if I trip walking down the aisle? What if I forget my vows? What if him? What if the man who loves you more than anything in this world is waiting at the end of that aisle, ready to spend the rest of his life making you happy? Grace laughed despite herself. When did you become such a romantic? When I watched my son go from a boy who couldn't make eye contact to a boy who performs sign language in front of hundreds of people. Rachel set down her tea and took Grace's hands. You did that. You and Marcus and Oliver, you showed Noah that the world could be different, that people could be kind. We all did it together. That's exactly my point. Rachel squeezed her fingers. You're not walking into that ceremony alone. You have a family now, a real family. People who love you and fight for you and would do anything to see you happy. Grace's eyes filled with tears. I never thought I would have this. After Daniel died, I thought I was done. I thought I would spend the rest of my life alone, just surviving, never really living. And then you walked into Marcus Wellington's house to be the help. And everything changed. Rachel smiled. Everything changed because you let it change. Because you opened your heart even when it was safer to keep it closed. Because you chose love over fear. A knock on the door interrupted them. Oliver's voice came through the wood. Grace, are you almost ready? Dad is freaking out downstairs. He keeps checking his watch and muttering about timing and schedules. I think he might actually explode if you don't come soon. Grace laughed, wiping her eyes. Tell your father I'll be there when I'm ready. I already told him that. He said to tell you that he's been ready for you his whole life and another few minutes won't kill him, but it might give him a heart attack. That sounds like Marcus. I know, he's so dramatic. Oliver paused. Also, Noah wants to know if he can carry the rings now or if he has to wait. He's been practicing not dropping them for 3 weeks and he's really excited. Tell Noah he can carry the rings, and tell your father to take a deep breath. Okay? Oliver's footsteps retreated down the hallway. Grace turned back to the window. The rain had stopped. Sunlight was breaking through the clouds, casting golden rays across the city. I think Elizabeth sent that rain, she said softly. Rachel looked at her. What do you mean, Halt? To remind me that storms don't last forever, that the sun always comes back. Grace touched the glass. She's here, Rachel. I can feel her, not angry or jealous or sad, just here, watching, blessing. You really believe that I have to? Grace turned from the window. Because I'm about to marry the man she loved, and I need to know that she's okay with that she would want this for him. For Oliver, for me. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made Grace's heart stop. Before she died, Elizabeth wrote Marcus a letter. Did he ever tell you about it? Grace shook her head. He showed it to me once, right after you got engaged. He wanted my opinion on whether he should share it with you. Rachel paused. I told him to wait until today. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope, yellowed, worn at the edges, Marcus's name written on the front in elegant handwriting. Elizabeth wrote this 2 weeks before she died. She made Marcus promise not to open it until he found love again. Grace's hands trembled as she took the envelope. He kept it for 3 years. He didn't think he would ever need to open it. He didn't think he would ever love anyone again. Rachel's eyes were bright with tears. But then he met you. Grace stared at the envelope. Her name wasn't on it. This letter was for Marcus from his dying wife, written in the final days of her life. Should I read it? Marcus wanted you to. He said you needed to hear what Elizabeth had to say before you walked down that aisle. Grace took a deep breath. She opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in handwriting that grew shakier toward the bottom, the penmanship of someone whose strength was failing, but whose spirit refused to quit. She read, My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, it means you found someone new. Someone who makes your heart beat faster. Someone who sees the man I fell in love with 15 years ago. I want you to know something. I'm not jealous. I'm not sad. I'm relieved. I spent so many nights lying in this hospital bed, terrified of what would happen to you after I was gone. Terrified that you would close yourself off, that you would hide in work and grief and never let yourself feel anything again. But if you're reading this, it means I was wrong. It means you were brave enough to love again. It means our son will have a mother. It means the light I saw in you the first day we met is still burning. I don't know who she is, this woman who captured your heart, but I know she must be special, because you are special, and you would never give your heart to someone who didn't deserve it. So here is my wedding gift to both of you, my blessing, my permission, my joy. Love her well, Marcus. Love her the way you loved me. And when you look at her, don't think about what you lost. Think about what you gained. Think about the miracle of finding love twice in one lifetime. Most people never find it at all. You found it twice. That makes you the luckiest man in the world. I will be watching from wherever I am, cheering you on, celebrating every anniversary, every birthday, every ordinary Tuesday. When you realize how happy you are, this is not goodbye. This is just see you later. Because love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes form. I love you, Marcus. I always will. But now it's time for you to love someone else, and I couldn't be happier about that. Forever yours, Elizabeth. Grace couldn't see the paper anymore. Her tears had blurred everything into watercolors. "She knew," Grace whispered. "She knew you would need permission. She knew you would feel guilty. She knew me better than I knew myself." Marcus's voice came from the doorway. Grace looked up. He was standing there in his tuxedo, looking more handsome than she had ever seen him, his own eyes red with tears. "You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony," Grace said. "It's bad luck." "I don't believe in luck anymore." Marcus crossed the room and took her in his arms. "I believe in love. I believe in second chances. I believe that Elizabeth sent you to me because she knew I needed saving." Grace held the letter to her chest. She really was okay with this. More than okay, she wanted this. Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "And now I need to know that you're okay with this, that you can marry a man who will always love his first wife, who will always carry her in his heart." "I wouldn't want it any other way," Grace whispered. "Because the man who could forget her isn't the man I fell in love with. The man I love is someone who honors his past while building his future, who carries his grief with grace, who teaches his son that love doesn't have limits or expiration dates." She kissed him softly. "I'm not replacing Elizabeth. I'm joining her, adding my love to hers, making your heart bigger instead of asking you to make it smaller." Marcus's tears fell freely now. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not." Grace grinned through her own tears. "But you're stuck with me anyway." The ceremony was held in the same church where Marcus had married Elizabeth 15 years ago. Some people thought it was strange. Others thought it was disrespectful. But Marcus and Grace knew the truth. They weren't erasing the past. They were honoring it. The pews were filled with everyone who had been part of their journey. Rachel Chen sat in the front row, Noah beside her, the ring pillow clutched in his small hands. Headmaster Crawford was there, looking almost human for once. Even some of the teachers from Whitmore Academy had come, the ones who had learned sign language and changed their classrooms forever. And in the very back, almost hidden in the shadows, sat Victoria Ashford. Marcus saw her as he walked to the altar. Their eyes met. She did not smile. She did not wave. She simply nodded once and looked away. It was not forgiveness, it was not friendship, but it was acknowledgement. Recognition that the battle was over, that she had lost, that perhaps in some small way she understood why. The music began. The doors at the back of the church opened. Oliver walked down the aisle first, carrying a small framed photograph of Elizabeth. He placed it on a stand beside the altar, then took his place next to his father. "She should be here," Oliver whispered. "She is," Marcus whispered back. "She's everywhere." Then Grace appeared. She walked alone. No father to give her away. No family to escort her. Just Grace in a simple white dress carrying a bouquet of wildflowers. Her eyes fixed on the man waiting for her at the end of the aisle. Marcus forgot how to breathe. She was beautiful. Not the polished, perfect beauty of magazine covers, but something deeper, something real. The beauty of a woman who had survived loss and loneliness and emerged stronger. The beauty of a heart that refused to close, no matter how many times it was broken. Grace reached the altar. Marcus took her hands. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," he whispered back. The minister began to speak, but Marcus barely heard the words. He was too busy looking at Grace, at this woman who had walked into his life to clean his house and ended up cleaning his soul. "Marcus, do you take Grace to be your wife? To love and cherish in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do." The words came out strong and certain. "I did the moment I met her. I just didn't know it yet." "Grace, do you take Marcus to be your husband, to love and cherish in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for as long as you both shall live?" Grace looked at Marcus, at Oliver, at the photograph of Elizabeth. "I do," she said. "I take him and his son and his memories and his grief and his love. I take all of it, because that's what family means. You don't get to pick and choose. You take everything, and you love it anyway." The minister smiled. "Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Marcus kissed Grace. The church erupted in applause. Oliver threw his arms around both of them, and for a long moment the three of them just held each other. A family. Finally. Completely. The reception was chaos in the best possible way. 200 guests filled the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. Music played. Champagne flowed. Children ran between tables while adults pretended not to notice. And in the center of it all, Noah Chen stood on a small stage ready to give a speech. The room fell silent as he raised his hands. Oliver stood beside him, translating every sign into spoken words. When I was 7 years old, I thought I was broken. Noah signed, and Oliver's voice carried his words to every corner of the room. I thought something was wrong with me because I couldn't hear. I thought I was a mistake, a burden, something that needed to be fixed or hidden or thrown away. His hands moved faster, more passionately. I went to 5 schools. 5. And every single one told my mom the same thing. We can't help him. He doesn't belong here. He's too much trouble. I started to believe them. I started to think that maybe I really was too much trouble. Maybe the world would be better without me. Rachel Chen was crying openly. Marcus held Grace's hand so tight his knuckles went white. Then I met Oliver? Noah's face broke into a smile. This weird kid who kept trying to talk to me even though I couldn't hear him, who got beat up for defending me, who learned a whole new language just so we could be friends. He looked at Oliver, his best friend, his brother in everything but blood. Oliver didn't see a broken kid. He saw a friend, and that changed everything. Noah turned to face Marcus and Grace. Mr. Wellington, you gave me something no one else ever gave me. You gave me a chance. You didn't try to fix me. You didn't try to change me. You just made room for me exactly as I am. His hands trembled with emotion. And Grace, you taught me that being deaf isn't a weakness. It's a different way of experiencing the world, a different way of communicating, a different way of loving. You showed me that different doesn't mean less. It just means different. He took a deep breath. I'm not broken. I never was. I just needed people who could see that. And because of this family, I have a whole community of people who see me now. Noah raised his glass of sparkling cider. To Marcus and Grace, thank you for fighting for me. Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for showing me what love looks like. The room rose to their feet. The applause was deafening, but Noah couldn't hear it. He could only see it, see the tears on faces, see the hands clapping, see the love that filled every corner of the room. And that was enough. That was everything. 6 months after the wedding, the Grace Johnson Foundation opened its first national training center in Brooklyn. 300 teachers had already enrolled in the program. 12 schools across New York State had implemented deaf education curricula based on the Whitmore Academy model, and the waiting list for services stretched months into the future. But today wasn't about numbers or statistics or achievements. Today was about one little girl. Her name was Sophie. She was 6 years old. She had been deaf since birth, and she had never met another deaf child in her entire life. Grace knelt in front of her in the lobby of the training center. Welcome, Sophie. She signed slowly, carefully. My name is Grace. Sophie's eyes went wide. Her small hands trembled as she signed back. You can talk to me. I can talk to you. Grace smiled. And there are lots of other people here who can talk to you too. Would you like to meet them? Sophie looked at her mother, who was crying quietly in the corner. The woman nodded. Go ahead, baby, it's okay. Sophie turned back to Grace. There was something in her eyes. Something Grace recognized from her own childhood, from Daniel's eyes when she first learned to sign, from Noah's eyes when Oliver became his friend. Hope. Will they like me? Sophie signed. The other people. They will love you. Grace took her hand. Because you are exactly who you're supposed to be, and you belong here. She led Sophie down the hallway toward a room full of deaf children who had gathered to welcome her. Their hands were already moving, signing greetings, signing welcomes, signing the words that Sophie had waited her whole life to see. You are not alone. You are one of us. You are home. Grace watched Sophie's face transform, watched the fear melt into wonder, watched the isolation crumble into connection, watched a little girl discover that she wasn't broken at all. She was just different, and different was beautiful. That evening, Grace came home to find Marcus and Oliver in the kitchen attempting to make dinner. The results were questionable at best. What exactly is this supposed to be? Grace poked at something that might have been pasta or might have been modern art. It's carbonara, Marcus said defensively. Sort of. It looks like something Noah's dog would reject. Hey, I worked hard on this, Oliver giggled. He set off the smoke alarm twice. Traitor. Marcus threw a dish towel at his son. You were supposed to be on my side. I'm always on the side of good food. Oliver caught the towel and threw it back. And this is not good food. Grace laughed and pulled out her phone. Pizza it is. They ate on the living room floor, just the 3 of them, surrounded by boxes that had been delivered during the day. The carbonara disaster sat forgotten on the counter. How was the opening? Marcus asked between bites. Grace thought about Sophie, about her face when she walked into that room full of children who spoke her language, about the tears in her mother's eyes when she realized her daughter would never be alone again. Perfect, Grace said. It was absolutely perfect. You're changing the world, you know, Oliver said casually, reaching for another slice. Like, actually changing it, not just talking about changing it. We're changing it together, Grace corrected. All of us. I helped by not setting the kitchen on fire more than twice, Marcus added. Your contribution is noted. Grace kissed his cheek. And appreciated. Oliver made a gagging sound. You guys are gross. We're in love. Marcus pulled Grace closer. It's supposed to be gross. Can Noah and I be in love when we grow up? Marcus choked on his pizza. Grace burst out laughing. You and Noah are best friends, Grace said carefully. That's a kind of love. The best kind, actually. But can we be gross in love like you guys when you're older? Marcus recovered his composure. Much older, like 40. 40? That's ancient, exactly. Oliver rolled his eyes, but he was grinning. Fine, I'll wait until I'm 40, but Noah is still my best friend forever no matter what. That's all anyone can ask for. Grace ruffled his hair. Someone who stays with you no matter what. 2 years after the wedding, the Grace Johnson Foundation had expanded to 15 states. Over 2,000 teachers had been trained. 47 schools had implemented inclusive programs for deaf and hard-of-hearing students, and Marcus Wellington had learned sign language. Not perfectly, his grammar was terrible and his vocabulary was limited, but he could communicate with Noah now, could tell jokes that made the boy laugh, could have conversations that didn't require translation. It had taken him 18 months of practice, 18 months of frustration and failure and starting over, but he had done it, because that's what family does. Oliver was 9 now, taller, more confident, still wearing his heart on his sleeve for anyone who needed it. He had started a non-profit with his allowance money-raising funds to buy sign language books for school libraries across the country. Noah was 11. He had won a citywide essay contest by writing about his journey from isolation to belonging. The essay had been published in the New York Times. Colleges were already sending him recruitment letters. Rachel Chen had married a wonderful man named David who had learned sign language before their second date. Noah had been the ring bearer at their wedding, and Oliver had given a speech that made everyone cry. And Grace was pregnant. She had just found out that morning. She hadn't told Marcus yet. She was waiting for the right moment, the perfect moment. She found it that evening when Marcus came home from work to find Oliver and Noah doing homework at the kitchen table, Grace cooking dinner music playing softly in the background. Home. This was what home looked like. Hey, Marcus kissed her cheek. How was your day? Eventful. Grace smiled mysteriously. I have something to tell you. Good something or bad something? Very good something. She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. The very best something. Marcus went still. His eyes searched her face. Then they dropped to where his hand rested against her belly. Are you going... Yes. We're going to... Yes. I'm going to be... Yes. Grace laughed, tears streaming down her face. You're going to be a father again. Marcus let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He pulled her into his arms and held her so tight she could barely breathe. A baby, he whispered. Our baby. Our baby, she confirmed. Due in 7 months. I found out this morning. Oliver looked up from his homework. What's going on? Marcus turned to his son, his face glowing with joy. You're going to be a big brother. Oliver's eyes went wide. Really? Like for real? For real? Oliver jumped out of his chair and threw himself at Grace, hugging her around the waist. I'm going to be the best big brother ever, he declared. I'm going to teach the baby sign language and how to make friends and how to stand up for people who are different and slow down. Grace laughed. The baby isn't even born yet. I know, but I need to start planning. There's so much to teach them. Oliver grabbed Noah's arm. Noah, you have to help me. What should the baby learn first? Signs or words? Noah signed his response and Oliver translated without thinking. Both. We'll teach them both at the same time. That way they can talk to everyone. Marcus watched his son and his best friend planning the education of a child who was still just a promise, and he felt something crack open in his chest. This was what Elizabeth had wanted. Not just for him to find love again, Not just for Oliver to have a mother, but for their family to grow, to expand, to include more people, more love, more light. She would have been so happy. And somewhere Marcus was sure, sure she was, 8 months later. The labor lasted 14 hours. Grace screamed and cried and swore she would never do this again. Marcus held her hand and told her she was strong and beautiful and the bravest person he knew. And then at 3:47 in the morning, their daughter was born. They named her Elizabeth, Elizabeth Grace Wellington. She had Marcus's dark hair and Grace's warm eyes and a cry that could wake the dead. She was perfect, absolutely perfect. Oliver was the first visitor. He crept into the hospital room at dawn, still in his pajamas, Noah right behind him. "Is that her?" Oliver whispered, staring at the tiny bundle in Grace's arms. "This is your sister," Grace said softly. "Elizabeth." Oliver's eyes filled with tears. "You named her after Mom. We wanted her to carry your mother's spirit." Marcus put his arm around his son, "to remind us every day of the woman who made our family possible." Oliver leaned close to the baby. She was sleeping, her tiny fist curled against her cheek, her breath coming in soft little sighs. "Hi, Elizabeth," he whispered. "I'm Oliver. I'm your big brother, and I'm going to protect you and teach you and love you forever, just like Grace loved me, just like Mom would have loved you." He reached out and touched her tiny hand with one finger. "And when you're older, I'm going to tell you about the first Elizabeth, about how she was brave and kind and strong, about how she taught Dad to love, about how she's still with us even though we can't see her." The baby's fingers closed around Oliver's, tiny and perfect and impossibly strong. "She's holding my hand." Oliver looked up with wonder in his eyes. "She already knows me." "Of course she does." Grace smiled through her tears. "She's been listening to your voice for 9 months. She knows exactly who you are." Noah stepped forward and signed something to the baby. Oliver translated. He said, "Welcome to the family." He said you're going to be loved so much it might be annoying sometimes. But that's what family is. The baby made a small sound. Not quite a cry, not quite a laugh. Just a sound of pure, perfect contentment. Marcus looked at the room, at Grace exhausted but radiant, at Oliver already in love with his little sister, at Noah, part of their family in every way that mattered, at the tiny baby who represented everything they had fought for, everything they had built, everything they had become. 3 years ago, he had come home early from a business trip and found his housekeeper teaching his son sign language. He had assumed the worst. He had been wrong about everything, and that wrongness had led him here. To this moment, to this family, to this love that was bigger than anything he had ever imagined. "Thank you," he whispered. Grace looked up. "For what?" "For walking into my broken life and refusing to leave. For seeing Oliver when I couldn't. For teaching me that love isn't something you feel, it's something you do, every day, no matter how hard it gets." Grace reached up and touched his face. "Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me when you had every reason not to, for fighting for Noah, and for the program, and for everything we've built." She looked down at their daughter. "And thank you for this, for giving me a family, for making me a mother." Marcus kissed her forehead. "This is just the beginning. We have so much more to do, so many more children to help, so many more lives to change." "I know," Grace smiled, "and I can't wait." 5 years later, the Grace Johnson Foundation had become the largest deaf education nonprofit in the country. Programs operated in all 50 states. Over 10,000 teachers had been trained. Hundreds of thousands of deaf children had been helped. And it all started with one little boy who was pushed on a playground. Noah Chen was 16 now. He had been accepted to Harvard on a full scholarship. He planned to study education law to fight for children like himself, to make sure no deaf child ever felt as alone as he once did. Oliver was 14. He was already talking about starting his own foundation someday, about building on what his family had created, about making the world a little bit better one child at a time. And little Elizabeth was 5. She was learning sign language alongside spoken English, fluent and both able to communicate with anyone and everyone she met. The wedding anniversary party was held in the same church where Marcus and Grace had married 5 years ago. Friends and family filled the pews. Laughter echoed off the walls. Love was everywhere. Marcus stood at the front of the church, looking out at the people who had become his world. 5 years ago, I stood in this exact spot, terrified and hopeful and completely unsure of what the future would hold, he said. I had spent 3 years hiding from life, hiding from love, hiding from everything that mattered. He looked at Grace, who was holding Elizabeth's hand. And then this woman walked into my house to clean my bathrooms and fold my laundry. And she changed everything, not because she had some master plan, not because she was trying to save me, but because she saw my son when I couldn't, because she cared about people I had overlooked, because she showed me that love isn't something you feel, it's something you do. His voice cracked. Elizabeth, my first wife, wrote me a letter before she died. She said she hoped I would find love again. She said she wanted me to be happy. She said that love doesn't end when someone dies. It just changes form. He looked at the photograph of Elizabeth that still sat in their home that their daughter was named for that reminded them every day of where they came from. She was right. Love doesn't end. It grows. It expands. It includes more people, more joy, more light. The love I had for Elizabeth didn't disappear when I fell in love with Grace. It made room. It got bigger. It showed me that hearts aren't limited. They're infinite. Marcus held out his hand to Grace. She walked toward him, Elizabeth toddling beside her. Thank you for this life, he said. For this family, for every challenge we've faced and every victory we've won, for the foundation and the children and the future we're building together. Grace took his hand. Thank you for seeing me. She whispered, for really seeing me. I will always see you, Marcus promised. Every day. For the rest of our lives. They kissed. The room erupted in applause. Oliver made his traditional gagging sound, which made Noah laugh so hard he nearly fell over. And in the back of the church, invisible to everyone but somehow present anyway, two spirits watched. Elizabeth Wellington and Daniel Johnson. Brother and sister-in-law now in a strange and beautiful way. Connected by the people they loved. United by the family they had left behind. They smiled at each other, and then they were gone. Because their work was done. Because the people they loved were happy. Because love, real love, the kind that changes everything, doesn't need to be seen to be felt. It just needs to be shared. That night, Marcus sat on the edge of Elizabeth's bed reading her a story. The same story that Grace had read to Oliver years ago. The same story that had started everything. Once upon a time there was a little boy who couldn't hear, Marcus read. Everyone thought he was broken. Everyone thought he didn't belong. But then he met a friend. A friend who saw him for who he really was. A friend who learned his language. A friend who refused to give up on him. Elizabeth's eyes were heavy with sleep, but she was fighting to stay awake. What happened to the little boy, Daddy? He grew up. Marcus smiled. He went to a great school. He made lots of friends. He changed the world. Because someone loved him. Because someone saw him. And sometimes, sweetheart, being seen is the most powerful gift you can give someone. Elizabeth yawned. I see you, Daddy. Marcus's throat tightened. I see you too, baby girl. And I see Mommy and Oliver and Noah and everybody. That's because you have your grandmother's eyes. Marcus tucked the blanket around her. She could see people too. It was her superpower. I want to see people when I grow up. I want to help them like you and Mommy helped them. You will. Marcus kissed her forehead. You already do. He turned off the light and walked to the door. Daddy? Yes, sweetheart. Tell Grandma Elizabeth I said goodnight. Marcus paused. His hand rested on the doorframe. His heart ached with a love so fierce it almost hurt. I will, he whispered, every single night. He closed the door and walked downstairs. Grace was waiting for him in the living room, a cup of tea in her hands, the same peaceful smile on her face that he had fallen in love with years ago. He sat beside her, took her hand, looked out at the city lights glittering beyond the windows. We did it, he said softly. We're still doing it. Grace corrected. Every day, for the rest of our lives. I love you. I love you too. They sat in comfortable silence, two people who had found each other against all odds, who had built something beautiful from the wreckage of grief and loss and loneliness. Marcus thought about that day so long ago now when he had come home early and found Grace teaching Oliver sign language. He thought about his anger, his fear, his terrible, terrible wrongness, and he thought about how that wrongness had led to everything good in his life. Sometimes the worst moments are actually the best moments in disguise. Sometimes the thing that looks like disaster is actually salvation. Sometimes God puts people in our lives exactly when we need them, even when we're too blind to see it. Especially then. Marcus Wellington had been blind for a very long time, but now he could see, and what he saw was beautiful. A wife who loved him, children who inspired him, a family that had grown from two broken people into something strong and whole and full of light, a foundation that helped thousands of children find their voice, a community that had learned to see the invisible, a world that was a little bit better because one 7-year-old boy had decided to be kind. This was Elizabeth's legacy. This was Grace's gift. This was Oliver's inheritance. And it was just the beginning, because love doesn't end. It grows. It heals. It transforms. It takes two strangers and makes them family. It takes darkness and turns it into light. It takes everything broken and makes it whole again. This is what Marcus Wellington learned when he came home early and found the maid with his son. This is what changed his life forever. This is what love looks like when it refuses to give up. And this is how the story ends. Not with a period, but with a promise. The promise that somewhere in the world right now, another lonely child is waiting to be seen. Another broken heart is waiting to be healed. Another family is waiting to be born. And love, real love, the kind that changes everything's out there looking for them. It always is. It always will be. Because that is what love does. It finds a way. Always.